Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yeah. Okay. Back. I'll get some music
Are you back
going.
online?
I
Are
am
we back
just
online?
now going back
Oh,
online.
there we go.
Yep. And now I got to get everybody to be able to see you, which is the next hardest part. Uh, Properties. And I want to capture here. Done. Oh, but it's okay. All right, so
Are we back?
give me a test, and let's see if they can hear you. Yeah, I'm live.
Test.
Before I even try and get the video set up.
Oh, hey, sick. I'm heard. I feel so heard. I feel so heard tonight.
Here we go. Okay, I'm not even going to screw with everything else. I'm going to leave it as is. I think it was because I was having an issue with the. It was connected to the Arctis Pro game, not chat. So it's like stupid, but look at that.
Kooky.
Everybody's good. We're good. I think
We're now.
Awesome. Thank you for everybody's patience. I appreciate it.
Oh, sick. There's still 20 people in here. Dope.
That's amazing. I appreciate.
You know who we
that.
bled off? We bled off the fair weather fans.
Yeah, right.
These are the fucking diehards. Okay, these are rain, sleet, snow. These motherfuckers will listen to audio problems all day.
Good. Okay, so I need a drink after this. By the way, I'm drinking a green apple sour from Stillfire Brewing, who I feel like they should be giving me a sponsorship because every time I'm on stream, I'm drinking one of their beers. So
yeah, you gotta get them to send you like a 6-pack at least.
yeah,
I'm enjoying a Bruichladdich Islay Barley 2011. It's unpeated.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so while my Streamlabs catches up, it says no viewers, but I believe that's bullshit because Zeus is in here, says he can hear you.
Oh, yeah.
So does Slow But Still Furious, who I don't think I've seen before, but thank you. So we're going to start fresh. The good news is the recording starts fresh again as well. So I actually don't know your first name. What is your first name?
Andrew.
Andrew. Okay, well, Andrew,
Yeah.
aka WalletBurner, thank you very much for joining me. Everybody knows me. I'm Toby, aka Hedgey, which is why I have Toby Flinderson as my main avatar for Discord and Twitch. But thank you for joining me. As I said to you earlier today and earlier in the week, whole goal for this is we're going to get to know you. Everybody's going to be able to chat, participate. I may try and tweak the stream a little bit just so that we can get some of the chat up on the screen with Twitch as well, so you can see it, and that we don't have to be stuck on Twitch necessarily looking the whole time. But I'm going to throw the first and easiest softball question out to you, which I've asked every person who's been on so far, which is, what got you into the hobby, and what was your first keyboard?
Yeah. So I think like probably a lot of people, the way that I got into the hobby was I started building my first PC. So I moved down, I'm based out of Houston, and I moved down here for graduate school. And I got so goddamn bored in like the first year that I ended up like doing my first PC build. I had I basically just lived off MacBooks for like all of college and like most of my time after college, and then I just I was like, I need something to kill time, so I need to game. And my PlayStation broke, so I started building my first PC. And then I spent like months asking people who knew a lot more and cared a lot more about components. And then I got to the point where I was like, oh, like I've spent like a week and a half agonizing over CPUs, and I don't even touch that. Like what's what's something that I'll actually like interact with and like. And one thing I got was nice headphones, and then the other thing I got a Poker 3 RGB with browns. That's where I started in late 2015, early 2016, I think. I lurked for a while with just the poker, but yeah, it just sort of like snowballed from there. So I started with like a sub full size to begin with, and then I've only gotten smaller from there.
Okay, so was it and make sure I heard that right, as I was adjusting everything. It was a poker that you started with?
Yeah, Poker 3. Poker 3 RGB.
Okay, I was to say, so I'm assuming you came in around 2017, 2018, somewhere in there?
I think it was 2016. I
Sorry,
think.
16, 17. Yeah, because like that seems to be like the entry board that a lot of people started with.
Yeah.
Will Project Kane. I think he said he started with that. I know a lot of people who I've just talked to, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this, 60%. That's the gaming keyboard that got them into it, right?" And then
Yeah, it's one of the starter Pokemon. It's like that or like the An Pro. That
yeah,
was really I kind of wish I got that because that one was Bluetooth, but I wasn't like deep enough to know about that. HHKBs. Some people start with an HHKB and then I imagine they just stop there because it's the best tactile experience you can get. Don't at me. Um, but yeah, I really liked it, but then like I remember I felt so smart because I was like, oh dude, like GMK Skeletor was like the shit back then.
hmm
And I was like, oh, I don't even fucking need Skeletor. I know what I'll do. I'll just make the fucking mods purple with the underglow. And then I'll just make the, like the little legends, cyan for the alphas. And of course that lasted me about like 3 weeks, and then I
yeah.
was like, all right, okay, I'll like get. I don't even remember what my first key set what it was. I think it was DSA, but I can't remember what it was.
Interesting.
But yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there.
Okay. Okay. Nice. It's funny. I've mentioned a bunch of times. I started with that Am Pro, right? And as you said, the Bluetooth was great, but I remember stuffing it in my backpack, and then I'd get home and like half the battery was used because like in the car I'd be pressing buttons and stuff, or the RGB
Oh,
would be
gotcha.
going.
Yeah, I was very slow to like the getting a travel case game. I just like decided not to give a shit about that until like probably way too late. My first like actual build though was a JD40 sandwich kit, actually from One Up Keyboards,
Yep.
which kind of
Yep.
kind of dates it. I mean, I know they're still around, but I don't see them like in the stream, as much
Yeah.
as they used to be.
They
Uh,
exist and they still provide parts, but like they haven't done anything like innovative. It's all just been just the standard 60% and the JD40 stuff, and that's it. Like that's all they've done.
yeah, and I still like I think they sold Hasu controllers too for a little bit, but
Yes.
I think they also like Ski with Pete, the Pete, the
Yeah.
owner of One Up. He used to do streams on YouTube, and I remember that was like mesmerizing because I was like, I knew how to solder and stuff. Like I'd done like electronic stuff for work. I'm getting my PhD in neuroscience, so like I'm familiar with like I guess the technical aspects of like the basics of like electronics work, but really seeing him like go through it and like seeing other people in the chat and going to r/mechanical keyboards and really like seeing what was out there and seeing like what kind of like community driven projects there were. I remember that was still like a very like sweet time. Everyone was pretty nice. I mean, every once in a while you get like a hyperbolic asshole, but generally people were like, oh, you're new, like great, like what kind of switches do you like? Maybe you'll like these other ones. There's this crazy stuff called Zeal switches. Maybe if you want to spend a lot of money, which I think at that point was like 85 cents, like 60 cents per switch, like it's only gone up from there, but
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's awesome. I do have to take a quick pause. I have to shout out a couple of people. Rubber Militia, who I've actually known for, I say known, but known internet wise for a really long time. Thank you for the follow. I think he followed while we were struggling on the first stream, so appreciate that. I've known that dude a really long time actually, and I'm glad to see him here. Brothers, thank you for the follow, appreciate that. And then a big shout out to Latham Keys, resubbed for 2 months with the note "Love from Argentina." So huge thank you. As I've said multiple times, I will never beg, ask for followers or subscribers. I do this because I enjoy it. So anything that you guys do, I really genuinely appreciate. On a side note, it's funny because I hope I can always keep that. I hope that I blow up organically one day, but I hope that I always keep the true, genuine feelings about that, because like I watch certain top level streamers today and they they don't care anymore. They only care about money, and I'm not talking about in keyboards. I'm talking about like gaming. Like Tim the Tatman kind of sticks out, right? Where they brag about how much money they make, or they only answer chat where it's donations for $30 or whatever. It's insane, but
Those
just
smug fucks.
they kind of are these days. But I did want to shout those guys out. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, yeah. So you kind of had a similar. I think you and I are very OG for the 40s Discord, right? I think.
Well, I one time I went through and I looked at, you can look up like how many people have subscribed to RMK over time, and I think like if you've been in the community for longer than a year, you are immediately within like the top 50%, and it only gets more rarefied every year. Like it halves almost every year, to the point where like I think I'm probably like 95th percentile. I don't think I like that's a reflection of like genuinely how knowledgeable I am or anything like that, but it's crazy how much this community has grown.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into that. I do have some questions that I've asked Coob and
I'm
Will
leading
and
you so
others.
much, yeah.
No, it's good. No, this is good because there are things I want to talk about because what I'm noticing when I do these interviews is everybody's got a different perspective, and it's a good thing because the way I see things is sometimes a little cynical, and maybe that's just my nature. I look at the growth of RMK specifically right now and the way that the attitude has changed, the way that there are certain things that are desired and wanted. Like, I mean, nowadays, 65% with a blocker with GMK keycaps, or actually, I should say knockoffs at this point. And lavenders or holy pandas or whatever the main switch is, those seem to be the thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
whatever's sold out,
correct, right? And so again, this is why I think we in the 40 space are kind of unique. Because we kind of push the envelope. We like doing certain things that don't make any sense necessarily to a lot of people, but we enjoy those. So I will go down that road for sure. But I'm going to kind of lead into, I guess, your first official board you designed, a premium board, was the Neuron, correct?
Yeah, that was my first sort of at all, and really that the point of that was, I mean, I ran it. From I think October 1st to October 31st in 2019, and I sold, I think, barely 100. It sort of like barely made it to MOQ at 100. By the end, I was gonna buy it out anyway, but I do like that it did organically get there. But yeah, I mean, like, sort of the idea there was, I was so I think that like at the time, like especially like 2017, 2018, 2019, I think that the sort of like customs community, which was really, I think it was, but no longer is, really typified by the KB Customs. Used to be with a K, now it's with a C. Channel in
Did they change that?
Discord. I think they did. I think that, let me double check. I'm like kind of
okay. Yeah, I remember those days. I remember not getting along with a lot of those guys.
No, same.
But again, I'm very straightforward, and a lot of it had to do with van stuff, and you and I can talk about that too because that's a big part of a lot of what we've dealt with. But yeah, so getting in with those guys, what made you go the 12U 40 route, and is that a layout that you prefer over other 40s? I guess that's my question to you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, really, like, Cahal is as wide as I can get, like, comfortably. Like, it seems like conceited, but I really only daily driver my own boards.
Okay.
And part of that is because, like, if there's something messed up with something I designed, like, I take the responsibility of being a group buy runner very seriously, and if there's something messed up about what I've done, like I'll know it so much more intimately than any customer that gets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But back to your question. So like Neuron was taking a lot of those like influences that I saw from boards that were in like KB Customs, or like in like custom keyboards is a subreddit that really typifies that kind of view. I think they branched out a little more, like there's more diversity there, but really like that, like probably like the board that really like typifies this would be like the Q or the Quantric Extra Premium, the QXP.
Yep.
These are both boards that like I think really have like a what I would call like that really firm like KB Customs sort of look. Also, like a lot of TGR boards are like that. But I wanted to take kind of like those kind of design elements and like those sort of like aesthetics, but then adapt it to this board that I really liked, which my first board was the JD40, and I love that board. I taught myself how to die sub keycaps so I could put weird stuff on that board. Like I worked that board into the ground. I had I think Zeal V2s in it, and I like changed that out a couple times. But like that kind of like I wanted to marry that like kind of like premium look with this layout that I really loved. And the one thing that I didn't like about the JD40 was just that that bottom row is so busy. It's really busy, and I wanted to really simplify it. So I ended up playing around with it, and I ended up with the Neuron layout. But it's really just combining those two ideas.
Okay, nice. You mentioned the simple bottom row, and I think I'm big on big space bars. I just like the looks of them on a 40, and splits are great, right? But as you said, it can look very busy at some point, and
I just got my ultra long space bars from DCS Retro.
nice. So those 10Us or 9U,
man,
one of those, right?
See. One is 10.
I think there's like 9, I think, or something.
One it's like 9 and change, maybe 9.5.
Yeah, so I'm big on that. But like you said, the JD40 and the JD45 bottom row with the 2x2U, right, can look very busy if it's not done properly, in my opinion. So
honestly, I just don't use that many modifiers. Like as many modifiers as like you can put on the bottom row. Like I don't know what like the menu button does. Like I don't ever use that shit.
Same.
Like
I
use HTTP control too, so I don't even need the control button. Like
as Jay found out when we built my oceanographer prototype, or his oceanographer prototype, but I sent him my firmware. The bottom left key is escape, and then it's your GUI, your Windows, and then Alt, and then spacebar, and I can live with just those 4 keys. Like I don't need anything else on the bottom row, realistically. But again, everybody's different, and I've always said this is what makes 40s and our community great, is that you can have the same board. There could be 3 different layouts, and there could be 50 different key maps for everybody because it's what you're comfortable with. So
and I think Cube definitely deserves like some kind of an award for. I remember on the default Pearl V1 key map, I think it was like function plus backspace was actually was desktop turn off. So many people turned off their computers like because of his default layout. Like I remember I was like in the middle of chat with someone and they're like, "Oh, what's this?" And then like they were just gone for like 5 minutes. So shout out to the Trickster King.
I think you and I have a similarity. Just we enjoy the Pearl. That's such a that board, I think, inspired both of us, right? It inspired you for Cahal, it inspired me for Ocean.
And even for Neuron, like, I mean, like, Neuron was at first gonna, like, I was just like, what if you took, like, a JD40 and a Pearl and just kind of smashed them together with, like, a TGR? That was really, like, the idea. But I just like can't, man. I can't deal with that like high angle, and I think he went even higher for the R2. But
I think he raised it a little bit. I know. What was it? Pandora was like 9 degrees or something like that.
I think that's what the Pro V R2 is.
Is that where he's headed with it?
I think so. Yeah, that's what's on the website. I don't know. Like, I don't think he's put up an IC or anything.
Coob, if you're in here, please consider lowering that just a little bit, please. I've really found like 3 degrees to 5 degrees somewhere in there is like perfect. I'm not a fan of a flat board with 0 degrees. I can use it if it's got DSA. Like that's the only time I find myself really using like flat uniform keycaps. Otherwise, I prefer sculpted. So I'm with you on that. Big shout out to C Cons for the follow. Appreciate that. And as a reminder to chat, if any of you guys have any questions you'd like to ask Andrew or myself, please feel free to just type away. I am able to see that. We will happily answer those as well. So just kind of want to put that out there if you guys have any questions as we go along. You mentioned particularly about kind of doing a group buy, and it's a board that you designed, something that you carry passion about. I think I don't want to assume, but I think you and I can agree that in today's market, there's a lot of people who are in it for the money. More
Yep.
so in key sets than keyboards, because keyboards, the profit margins are a little bit less. I should say significantly less.
Mhm.
But I noticed that there are certain designers who get thrown under the rug or under the bus, if you will, for no reason whatsoever. I saw something with Blind Assassin just yesterday and today
Hmm.
for his new Victus sign, I think Sin, however you say it. His
Oh
polycarbonate
yeah.
60. It's just the polycarbonate board with a plate, and then you provide your
Hmm.
own PCB, but it's like up to 5 PCBs will fit in it, which is great. So you kind of got this almost universal case. And some
Yeah.
guy was in there like, oh, he totally is toxic and he screwed all this up. And I'm like, with what? Right? He's done the SP 111, which TKC was the issue with that, right? It wasn't actually blind. He
Yeah.
did.
No, and TKC has like turned everything they touched to shit. Like I remember like it really like I had heard nothing but bad things about TKC, but then I wanted to work with them actually, and because I wanted to provide minivan PCBs alongside, campsite, and they they quoted me like the per unit cost that you can buy on their website, and I was like, really? Like I'm buying like 500 of them. Like, are you like, don't you think you can cut me a deal? And but yeah, no, like for Blind Assassin specifically, like I know him. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's a Houston based guy. Like we often have like mini meetups, total sweetie pie, like, and also a really competent designer. So
Yep.
that's kind of surprising to hear, but everyone's got an opinion.
Well, so
Can't please them all.
correct, and so kind of where I'm going with that is I think that a lot of designers they do like a one-off, they make money, they feel like, oh, I can do this a lot, and it becomes less about passion and
Mhm.
more about what can I do that's popular, and that kind of leads into, am I
Yeah.
trying to appease the masses? And I noticed, like, with your boards now, granted I didn't buy Neuron or Cahal, shame on me,
That's fine.
but I can see that they are well thought out, right? What materials are
Thank
going in
you.
here? What is the plan? Is that kind of been your philosophy? Is it what makes you happy, or is it a mix of trying to kind of say this makes me happy and other people like where do
Mhm.
you fit in that kind of spectrum?
Yeah, I really think it should always be. I'm not going to tell people how to run their group buys, right? But in my case, I think it really is a balance between talking and listening. Like you need to know. Sometimes you need to listen, and you need to see what people's needs are and what needs to be tweaked, and what just isn't working. And but sometimes you need to tell people what to like. You need to tell people what's good. And that's a really tough balancing act, because it's really subjective, and it's down to people's personalities, but it's also down to like how niche or how out there is the idea that you have, and how much of a sell is it going to be to get someone to, not like literally like
Mm-hmm.
selling the keyboard, but like selling the idea of it to someone. Like, is someone going to get on board this right away because they immediately see, like, I think like a great example of, here's an idea and then here's like an expansion on that that's like logical and normal, is like taking the minivan and then building it out into like the Vanagon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that like that's a logical progression. People want like a 40 to make the game on, and there's sometimes like hard key maps on like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like,
Yep.
so why wouldn't you add that? Totally makes sense, right? Easy thing to get on board with. There are some sort of further out there kind of like ergonomic boards where I feel like it's a really tough sell to someone who's like first coming in, or like ortho ergo kind of hybrid stuff. So then maybe what you like is really niche, and you can design it as well as you possibly can, but it might not have the wide appeal. But back to sort of another point that you made on the way to that, which is like, that some people seem like they're like in it for the money, and maybe they're just designing lowest common denominator stuff. I think that should be like avoided like the plague, especially in the 40s space. Like
Yeah.
I have no respect for someone who just puts out like the 60% tray mount case with nothing special going on, unless it has something to say. Like, are you moving things forward, especially in
Correct.
the 40s space? Like, I think that's really important. But there's also sort of within that. I mean, there are companies like Novel Keys has done such a good job of, I think, making like cases that are community inspired accessible at like a reasonable price point, right?
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to be able to do what Novel Keys does better than Novel Keys. I'm not going to like be able to like pump out NK65s. Like, that's not what I'm interested in. Even if I wanted to do it, I couldn't compete, right? um
Yeah,
but,
huge shout out to Mike, by the way, for stepping up and being like one of the first vendors to just say, okay, I know what people kind of like, and we're gonna take the step and put the upfront cost to do something like that.
yeah,
I've mentioned my wife's got the milkshake NK65 and she loves it, and
yeah, that's
you know,
great.
I waited, I don't know, however long for it, but it was totally worth it because it was like, hey honey, here's a keyboard for you. I tuned the stabs on it and said, here you go. Like, you don't, and I didn't have to do anything else outside of that. Like, all I did was like make the stabs not rattly, and she's enjoyed it. And so like,
Yeah.
huge shout out to him. And I agree with you that there's this kind of balancing act where, are you doing it because you love it, or are you doing it because you think you can find a way to a quick buck? And huge
And there's a balance between like availability and
Yes.
like pushing the envelope. So there's you know, there's a lot of axes to this graph.
Yeah, and
Uh,
and that was one of the things we took into consideration with Ocean. We would have run it way earlier in 2021, but when we got the first prototypes out, we legitimately took the feedback from the guys who bought in on it, and we were like, okay, give us your honest feedback. Where are we lacking? What can we fix? And
yeah.
on top of that, then we had the shortages for everything, and the price went up. And Taylor and I still made the decision, hey, we got to go forward with some of this stuff because we promised people aboard in 2021, or at least a group buy. So I think we took a hit financially because we wanted to provide something that we thought people would really enjoy, and we hope it works. So the order's in. We're waiting, right? We'll see in Q1, but I think there's that.
And as far as pricing goes, like, you know, I got shit on for selling the Neuron V1 for 230, and like that, I've seen that resell for 600. You know,
Yeah.
like there's such a strange like, and there was like, you know, people gave me shit for how I was pricing the Cahal extras and stuff, and I totally understand where they're coming at. I will say this: if you look at the aftermarket price, I did successfully crater it. So lose the battle, win the war.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
There's a
mix.
balance to that as well.
Yeah,
and I won't judge other people's pricing. Like, if I'm not gonna buy it, or if I think it's too expensive, I just won't do it. But like, I felt bad having to price Ocean at 350, even though it was feature rich, right? This idea that we've got OLED and rotary and all that, and like, that's great. But I felt bad with the pricing, and then I see, as you mentioned, some like tray mount 60% cases that are coming out. And they're like, oh, it's $380, and I'm like, what makes it special? Or did you just not?
This is one piece. Yeah.
Did you not get a
or
good deal
like
with the menu, or are you doing it in the
or
U.S.?
maybe two axes? Yeah, like it, you know. Sorry, I'm talking designer talk, but yeah, like
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I know exactly what you meant.
Yeah, no, for the benefit of the listeners, I'm talking about how many different angles do you have to use in order to like mill basically you know, a cube into a keyboard.
Correct.
And the more axes you use, the more expensive it becomes.
Yes.
So when I see something that's like literally just like everything is facing one axis and then it also has a USB hole, I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
You know, like,
that should be a $200 board at most, right? Or a
yeah,
case.
and if it isn't, I'm like, come on, man.
I actually, when I was doing the Ocean, because remember, Ocean was like my first really foray into doing design.
Which let me stop you and say I
Yeah.
really like that board. I
Thank you.
think it's a great like first start. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was funny because Taylor was like, hey, you got to put something on there to signify the protos and make it a Founders Edition. I'm like, okay, fine. And I remember I went into Fusion and I put Founders Steer the Ship on the inside of the bezel. And Taylor's like, do you want your price to double? And I'm like, no, why? He goes, because that's a fifth axis. You need. I'm like, oh. And he's like, yeah, you you got to put that on the outside bud. And I was like, okay. And then we just settled on the inside of the weight. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But that's when I learned, I was like, oh, there's 3, 4, and 5 axis, manufacturing. And I'm in manufacturing. I should know that. I've been in it for a decade plus, but I just like had a brain fart and I was like, oh yeah, that was really, it would have looked cool, but I digress. So, let's talk about Cahal a little bit, because as you kind of rolled into that, 13U, right? For the most part, we'll include the arrows to the side. Very much, I can see the inspiration from the Pearl with the RGB and the diffuser. I don't know a lot about the name and the microscope. I know you mentioned that in the original interest checking group buy, but just kind of a refresher for everybody here, kind of where that came from, the idea, and kind of what your design was with the layout.
So it's called the Cahal, or the Kajal, if you want to raise my blood pressure. But it's so basically, like, it's named after Santiago Ramon y Cajal. So I'm getting my PhD in neuroscience, and Santiago Ramon y Cajal is the first Nobel laureate in what we would call neuroscience today. Okay. He shared it with Camillo Golgi. He actually kind of like owned Camillo Golgi with his own silver stain technique. So there's this fight where Cajal was saying that the brain is made out of distinct cells called neurons that communicate, but they're separate from each other. And Camillo Golgi said, no, it's just a syncytium. It's like basically like a big net of things all kind of like connected to each other. Turns out they're both right, although they were not both right at the time that they got the Nobel Prize. About 40 years later, Camillo Golgi was found to be technically correct, which is the best kind of correct, when we found gap junctions, which are basically like these ways that like cells can communicate without using neurotransmitters or synapses. They basically just directly connect. So both right, but Cajal really deserves so much credit. He named so many of the structures that terminology we still use in the nervous system. He was a fantastic artist. So basically, he used the Zeiss microscope that I based the engraving on the Cajal on.
Okay.
And he would have one eye in and one eye out, and he would trace neurons and structures. And he's a fantastic artist. Also, my favorite story about him is he wrote science fiction stories under the pseudonym Dr. Bacteria, which is fucking wild. And he was once jailed in a church as a child because he blew up his neighbor's door with a homemade cannon. So just a really weird, precocious person. We all in some way like owe him a little bit of credit, so this is my sort of homage to him.
Nice. And you're in a very specialized education field and course study with neuroscience. I'm assuming one day you want to be called Dr. Andrew, and is that the goal? I mean, just on a personal note?
Yeah. No, definitely. Not an MD, but I am getting my PhD, and I work in research. I really like it. Most days, it's definitely been a sort. That's why my first board was called the Neuron. That's why I went with the Cajal for the second board. Campsite was really the departure from that, and largely that was because like the van, like etymology was already there. So I encourage anyone who's just like likes weird documentaries, check out there's a documentary called Vannin, which is about the it's about like the camper van community, which is like just a bunch of weirdos not unlike ourselves that basically drive across country to like the middle of nowhere, like some rest stop in like Idaho, and then they just set up and like make margaritas and act weird, and like sort of like just the vans that have like a Pegasus like airbrushed on the side with like $5,000 worth of stereo equipment, like that's Vannin. So I named it Campsite kind of in homage to that sort of weird subculture, which I think is dying. Like everyone in that documentary looked like they were like in their 50s, 60s, 70s. There's a lot of like old hippies like blasting Steve Miller out of their vans. No
I
offense
still
to
think
people
there's
like
a
that.
young group, but it's just not as prominent, right? Or they're just not as known.
That's what I mean by dying. Yeah.
Yeah, that Blue Jays pitcher,
Uh,
the major league player, it was a pitcher, and he lived out of a van, even though he was making like $500,000 a year on his rookie contract. Right? He was,
what's up?
vet or whatever the minimum was, and he was like, I just want to live out of a van. That's what I like. And
I appreciate that. Like if you know what you like, shine on, you crazy diamond. You know that's kind of what the
name?
40 Jeep is.
Oh, it's escaping me. The free solo guy. The climber.
Oh,
I can't
the
think
guy.
I can't think of his name right now, but
Me neither.
in that doc, he was basically living out of his van while he was getting ready to do the do that thing. And
I think a lot of climbers do that too. Yeah.
Alex Honnold, thank you. Yes, and get that. Welcome. By the way, welcome to anybody who's first time here. I should have said this at the beginning, but because we had the technical issues with the first part of the stream, I didn't get to it. For those that don't know, I am Toby, aka Hedgey, who my streams are 40s focused. I will do other builds and such, but Andrew and I know each other from the 40s Discord. That's why I invited him in here. So if anybody's in here for the first time, I do a lot of builds where mostly 40s, 45s. We do interviews. We do just kind of hang out streams. So welcome. I appreciate you guys being here, but I just wanted to shout out anybody new here. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Really, really appreciate that. So, as we were talking about, you mentioned Van, and I think Evan, aka Trashman, has had a kind of big influence on our designs and what we like, and really in the 40s community as a whole. And ever since he got out of the Van keyboards officially and has become Trashman, I really think he's flourished. And I think like a lot of the designs coming out, as you said, Vanagon, Hull is fantastic, which I sold mine to pay for the garbage truck. By the way, thank you very much for that. So those of you that are in here that do know, or if you don't know, Wallet was nice enough to sell me his garbage truck, which I desoldered. Those switches should be to you tomorrow. And I am going to be building that either Saturday or early next week. It kind of depends how the schedule goes with me lubing switches and whether the Space Cadet keycaps show up or not. That's they're supposed to be here Friday. That'll put me on edge, but yeah, crossing fingers for that.
Down to the wire,
yeah. And so like Evan's had a huge influence on me personally, and he's always very welcoming. You said you kind of did campsite both for that van living community, and I'm assuming because minivan, it kind of fits in the theme.
yeah, for sure.
It
was really. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, go ahead. You're kind of heading my direction.
Yeah. That design was really between. I wanted to design a case, like a premium kind of case for, because like I really like the minivan, but that tray mount case had to go. Like I was so tired of seeing it for like 4 years, right? Like same case. So I just wanted to do something different, and it was really between that or the plonk, or the plank, if you want to say it wrong. So the plonk, like the only reason I really went with the minivan is one, like I only use staggered boards. Like I can't do ortho. I tried. I have too idiosyncratic and weird of a typing style. And the fact that it was so hard to source plonk PCBs en masse. So I ended up going with the minivan. I'm glad I did. Got a prototype campsite right here.
Very nice.
With the weight. With the
WalletBurner
logo.
Is that inset? It's not flush.
No, it's just not screwed in.
Okay,
right
I was gonna say,
I was playing around with it.
Like, I think we all designed the weights to be like flush with the case. I don't think a lot of people inset it ever, which I.
No, neither did I. Yeah.
Maybe I should start thinking about doing that with some other boards. So.
I was actually testing. I took it out I threw a Halloween party and there were some keyboard people here, but I was actually just testing the fitment of these little rubber feetsies, which are good. This is full of rubber feet.
Nice.
This is full of gaskets, and then all the way down 300 catch PCBs.
Very nice.
Waiting for me to flash them once I finish my thesis.
By the way, all you ortho people are super strange. I can type on ortho. I can actually type on any stagger, believe it or not. But I prefer your standard stagger. Outside of Pearl, I'm actually really comfortable with Pearl. I know that throws a lot of people off. But you ortho people are weird. Like, when you ask me, can you make the Ocean ortho? It's a 12.75. That's really hard to do. And then Taylor's like, oh, hey, let me just design a PCB that kind of spaces everything a little different, and I can give you a 13U ortho. And I'm like, what the hell, man? You know, so
He's a fucking mad scientist.
he is.
You know, he's such a boon. Like, I'm so glad he's on our side. You know what I mean? Like, he could just be making bad TKLs if he wanted.
Yes, he mini bean it,
I'm so
right?
glad he's here.
But yeah, like Laszlo, ortho for life. Maybe. And ironically, Taylor will be here when Ocean actually does ship. So I'm obviously doing all the fulfillment for the U.S. and North America out of my house. And Taylor will be staying here for a weekend in this bedroom that's right down the hall. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he'll get my creepy basement, which is great. Which, when the lights go off, this place is super creepy. So, good luck with that, Taylor.
I can see it. I feel like I can visualize it.
Yeah, we need to do some things in here, but it's a long story. So, no, it's cool because I think I didn't get in on Vanagon, which kicking myself for that originally, and then I missed round 2, and then I didn't have money. I didn't want Hull again, and like there's all these things, and then I was like, oh, he's coming out with R4 in milled acrylic, like that's right up my alley. And so I think I'm gonna go in on that.
Nice.
I went in on Coriander. So having some kind of trash man history, or at least desired boards, is kind of nice. And I think back about how the boycott, I think spurred
let's
a lot of us.
get into it.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, like, if you think about the boycott, I think spurred so many people to start designing, and I look at all the 12.75U, or I should say 1.75U backspace boards that are out or coming out now. I think there's, if you include my police van, there's like 5 in interest check right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be at least 20. I mean, like, it's really hard for me to stay up to date on just the number of projects in 40s. But back to the boycott.
Yeah, please.
I actually I was at I think I was at NorCal Meetup 2018, and I actually got to go to dinner, and it was I think it was like Oblotsky and King Nesty on one side of the table, and it was Evan on the other, and it was like so tense. So I actually got to see that like kind of play out in person. It was a really bad Thai place. It was god awful. But it was also during, like, I think there was like a huge, like, or maybe it's 2017. I can't remember. Anyway,
I think it was 2018 because
could be,
because 2017 they were still good. Like, I came in at the end of 2017 into the hobby, and they were still good. Like, everything was still getting made. And then it was some point in 2018, I think the summer of 2018, when the Kickstarter came out. So and
like, I can kind of see both sides of it, honestly. Like, there's definitely, like, key set designers, they put their work in, and they don't want someone to come out from under them. And Evan, like, wants to come out with a new key set, and he wants to reach fucking MOQ because it's so expensive to do tooling. I really can see both sides, and it's unfortunate that it worked out the way it was, but it really set these battle lines, for good or ill, which have more or less stood. I mean, like, I know that there are people that still think like Olivia's a piece of shit in the 40s server, and like, she's such a sweetie in person. Like, it's all this stuff happens online, and it's really easy to lose perspective, or to forget that, like, who you're talking to is like a real person with maybe understandable, like, but a different perspective from you. So I totally, that sounds maybe overly diplomatic, but it's really what I think.
No, I think that's right in line, because, as I mentioned in some previous streams and interviews, like, I've taken a step back in how I approach people, right? And maybe it's just me becoming a little older and understanding, like, as you said, these are real people that were internet battling, right? And at the time, I was very passionate because I was newer into the hobby, and I'm like, man, you guys are idiots. Like, why wouldn't you want the money? And as you said, I can kind of see both sides of it. I still think there was some nefarious shit going on in the background from the big three. But as you said, like, Evan's goal was just to make a key set, hit MOQ, and provide everybody else with what he wanted. And I think now because of the way everything went, and because now we go like DSS sets, we kind of have this like base 40s kit that everybody kind of uses, and now with trash cons being available through SP, now you've got like this ability to come up with colors. You don't have to worry about novelties because the icons are really cool, and you can just say, hey, I picked 3 or 4 colors, here's my key set, can I get a quote? Melissa's like,
Crank it up.
Yeah, here it is. And
pretty
exactly.
easy. Make 100 of them, done. No, and I think Mike's done that, a couple times now.
Shout out DSS 420.
Oh yeah, I didn't get that, but I did get. I do have drank somewhere.
I should have gotten drank. I didn't get drank.
It rules. I need to put. I have a daily driver a drank neuron with a custom version of. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
with a custom. So DSA Deep Space was like one of those sets that was just like unobtainium when I entered the hobby, and I think it just like stuck with me. Eventually, I tracked down like half of the modifiers and like all of the alphas, and I actually had Frank from Prime Caps, who's a good friend of mine. He threw together like a custom like set to make up for the stuff that I don't have.
Nice.
Like the 1.75 enter key and stuff like that. That is going to be unseated by DSS Drank any day now. But yeah, no, I think it definitely like, and I think it's, well, there's 2 points I want to make regarding like the key set stuff. One is I think like it's not like, you're saying that like you've sort of like, you try to remember like these are real people, and you kind of like calm down, and I think I have too, but for like, it's so crucial that there be an in-person live IRL meet space component to this community, because it's, you talk to people online and you think they're one way, and you meet them in person and they're a totally other way. And part of that is just like how people write versus, post versus how they are in real life. But I think also it's like super grounding. Like, there's shit you just won't say to someone if you ever have to see them at like a mini meetup. You know what I mean? Like,
yep. The
last
2 years have been bad for this. I'm glad. I will go back to what you just said, because I've got a big point about it. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But the last 2 years have been void of in-person interaction for obvious reasons.
And I think it's all for the detriment of the community, really. There's so many people that I've like gotten to know over the last like couple of years that like, I don't know what they're like in real life. I would love to like buy them a beer or like get a hamburger with them or something like that. And the Texas community was really known for a long time for like having these really good meetups. I like to think I contributed to that with the 2017-2018 Houston meetups, which we were able to get like 200 people out there, which is awesome. Crazy to think of now. Like, I don't even think like there's a couple of virtual meetups that haven't even gotten to that, and I think that's like sort of a decay of the community. The other thing is like, I do think like those battle lines from key sets wars of the past are starting to kind of fade. Part of that is just because you look at like the membership numbers on like RMK, which is really as close as we have for like figuring out how the community is growing, and fucking no one was around back then. Like, no one who's in the community now was really around back then.
No one knows Hub Drama.
Even the makers who were involved, like, there's a decent percentage of them that aren't around. And I totally agree with your point earlier about like how I feel like Evan, Trashman, has really like gone through this like crazy renaissance since he sold the IP to TKC
who took forever to get. That's a whole nother story. But so I want to address real quick, because some people have been commenting. So hey Taylor, I'm glad you're here, and yes, I can't wait for you to sleep in my basement either. That sounds really creepy when I say it out loud. Dan, I'll get you together, because we still need to go out together for drinks. I'll tell you all about the Hub Drama as unbiased as possible now that I've been out of it for a year plus, 2 years, right? Like, everything's settled down. I can officially kind of give both sides to you. So I'll go over that with you. It's a long story. Let's see. Maker Jake said DSSD's nuts. I forgot about that set too. It's just, was that Mike's set? Do you know, Andrew? Was that Mike's set? I think it was.
Wait, which one?
DSSD's nuts.
Oh, DN. I think so. I don't know. That was like I don't get in on a lot of like meme sets. Like I generally like want to be able to like bring it to work, which is one of the reasons why I didn't buy DSS 420. Is like I can't bring that to work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I think it was.
Sorry, real quick, guys. I did put the moderator on for spamming caps messages, so I think that's why it said 12 were deleted by a moderator. My bad. I will turn that off for the next stream. So if your message got deleted, it's because it had all caps locks on there. So just FYI, sorry about that. That was something I turned on. So just wanted to keep you guys up to date. Yeah. Laszlo says, yeah, but aren't more and more sets these days not having 40s ortho support?
For sure, yeah.
I think there is. There's also a lot that are including the what's the 3-key support, right, or 4-key support, where they just have the 1.25 tab, the 1.75 backspace, and the 1U. Was it 1U or
1U backspace, I think.
Oh, 1.5 enter, right? Like
Oh yeah,
those three.
yeah.
Those three. Let me turn off this stupid. God, I'm sorry, boys. The moderator needs to shut off. It keeps deleting everybody's messages.
Oh no, yeah. Fuck.
I'm so sorry, guys. Hang tight.
But yeah, no, I think part of the reason that like
There we
so
go.
many of the sets like aren't running like 40s or ortho is one, the number of like big vendors isn't increasing. Like we've reached like some like set of like 5 or 6 depending on where you are, like major vendors for each area max. And a lot of sets are designed to maximize those companies' time.
Yep.
You know, the smaller sets are like still having 40s, but also I think like 40s community in general like hasn't always shown up for like big set 40 and ortho kits. And part of that is just because so many people want like either like there's so many 40 boards that have like 1 or 2 like unobtainium caps, which are really hard to design for, especially like ergo kits. That can be really tricky. But also like we're cheap. Like we don't we don't want to pay like $100 for like, you know, like 10 keys or whatever.
we won't pay for key sets, but if it's like a really awesome board, we're like, yeah, $500, no problem. You know, like
it's a weird mix, and then we'll just buy blanks for like whatever's not there, right?
So
yeah, I don't know what the answer to that is. It's really tough.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back, I think, even to the meetup stuff. So you mentioned obviously, and you're correct. There hasn't been a lot of meetups. I went back a couple months now ago to the South Carolina meetup, which was 13 of us. But like, even like just getting together in person was so awesome, and it allowed like I don't know if you know ARS lock, Ars lock.
Oh yeah, isn't he like an OG?
Yeah,
he's been around.
Yeah, and he brought out 2 Alices and 2 Janes, and like I got to type on those. I was like, wow, these are really nice, and I can kind of see why they're what they are. And he had like 20 boards there, and I brought all my 40s, and I was the only one to bring anything smaller than a 60%. So everybody was like really kind of, and I was like, man, this is great. There's 13 of us here, and you guys are enjoying learning about my stuff. I'm enjoying learning about your stuff. It's where I unveiled the ocean polycarbonate one too, which was really cool.
Nice.
And I was like, man, we need to have like a big meetup. And so you kind of touched on like Texas had at some point 200 people show up for a meetup. I want to.
Yeah, that was Houston alone too. Yeah.
I want to triple that. So I am, and I've kind of mentioned this on a previous stream. I'm working out the details with a semi-local place here in Atlanta to have a meeting space for a 2-day event, a 2-day mechanical keyboard meetup for the Southeast. But really, nice. I'm hoping we get people from Texas, Alabama, you know, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. I want it to be an event, and maybe one we can do annually or every 18 months, something like that, where it's like we get everybody together, and anybody wants to fly in. Atlanta's a central hub, then we can have everybody. And I figure springtime of 2022 should be a little bit more safe for everybody. You know, we'll get a sense of, you know, precautions and requirements.
Watch like Zeta strain come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, like that would, yeah. And also, I mean, just like as far as like Atlanta meetup history. He goes like, I remember like Atlanta meetup in like 2017 or 2018, I forget which. Like that was like one of those things that happened where it's like, oh dude, we can do this. Like, like I saw like, the custom keycaps and like just like the general vibe there. And I feel like that was like one of the kind of unspoken um inspirations for like the Austin meetups. Like
Yep.
the biggest one, or I think the funnest one being at Digital Pharmacy when that happened. But yeah, there was like all kinds of that was run by Oh Yeah, who also had a huge part in I think was the main organizer for Key Crawl and Two Key
Okay.
Two Crawl. Um, but yeah, that's so crucial. Like talking to people about keyboards and trying stuff,
Hmm.
trying stuff that you don't have to buy that stupid hype switch because someone else has been waiting for that for a long time, and you can try it on their board, and you can see if it's what you want. Like, there's
Yeah,
so many
the
Alps boards
guys
that
the
I
guys
like.
in South Carolina tried the KTT strawberries, and they were like,
Mhm.
"These are really great. What are these?" I'm like, "They're unlubed stock switches from KTT," and they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they don't need lube, they don't need film, like they're perfect." And they're like, "How expensive were they?" I was like, "I think they're like 30 cents a piece, something like that." And like, "How do we get some?" And I'm like, "You just got to know people." Like, right? And like jokingly, I told them like, "Here's where I got them from,"
Yeah.
but as you said, everybody's big on like whatever streamer is hyping up whatever switches, but in reality, like the options now compared to just a year ago are insane. Like you have so many choices, and
Hmm.
you don't, because you don't go to meetups, you don't know, you don't have to follow the status quo. You can do other
Yeah.
stuff.
I think that streamer like monoculture in keyboards is such a shame because like I think like Teha was like kind of the first of those to like really hit super big.
Yep.
Um, Tiny was doing it I think even longer, but she was doing artisan streams and stuff like that, which I think is a different beast.
Yeah.
But I really lament this kind of like streamer monoculture where people just like kind of inherit their opinions from someone that they trust. I think there's a place for that. Like like I'm also into like firearms, and like
Yep.
there's plenty like gun YouTube is a goddamn nightmare in so many ways, but mainly in that people inherit their opinions from someone else who has the $5,000 to buy that weird Heckler and Koch that you're never gonna try and you're never gonna see at the range, and you get to make decisions about like some cartridge that maybe you could go to 100 academies and they would have one box of that weird shell or something. It's there's all kinds of like examples of this, but I think getting out there and trying keyboards and meeting people and making IRL
Mm-hmm.
relationships
Mm-hmm.
is something that I cannot wait until like the pandemic is sort of over, so or I guess now it's like it's an epidemic just here.
Yeah. I wouldn't have made friends with Chris from Mexican Company if I didn't go to that meetup, and I wouldn't have made friends with AR Slock, right? Like
Yeah,
those are now friends that I have because I went to that meetup, and I was like, "Hey, I'm only 2 hours south of you guys. I drove up to this meetup because it's been so long, and I wanted to kind of talk with other people and have that conversation." And um, the the kind of point that hits home for me is the new people in the hobby, and especially those that don't know better and are buying like clone keycap sets, and they're like, "Oh, the font looks fine to me. Like I don't have a problem with it." And I'm like, "Man, if you were in person and you saw like the knockoff set next to the real set, you might actually
mhm,
change your tune." And we're not. I'm not calling. I should say we. I don't want to say we. I don't speak for everybody, as you just mentioned, right?
sure,
This streamer culture. I'm not saying that you're a bad person for buying a clone. I actually understand the reasons you would want to. The set is
totally.
really old and it's unobtainable, or it's expensive and you don't want to wait 2 years like Dracula did, right? Um,
Oh god.
but I think if you go in person and you see the difference, that quality will actually matter to you, but you're not going to know if you never do it. So I understand it, and I think that we need a big meetup. We need a lot of people to show up. We need kind of everybody's opinions. I want to hear what other people like. I want to type on what other people like. I know like the big thing now is like flex. I still like a really firm typing experience personally. And others may think they really like flex, but that's because a certain streamer has pushed like your board has to push in 4 inches for you to be happy, right? And
Yeah, and
it's
I also remember like the like I remember right before Flex was a big thing, like integrated plate was a huge thing where people were like, "Oh man, like integrated plate, like it's just in the top, like you don't need to buy a plate. Like, isn't that cool?" And then people typed on it, and it felt like, or maybe you loved it. I don't know.
I didn't like
If
the
you like a
sound.
firm, okay,
Yeah.
but the feel maybe you're down with, which is
Yeah.
just that feeling of like, I mean, it's like typing just on the top
A
of a
concrete.
desk. It's
Yeah,
just
just
like
donk.
super firm, yeah, just like a brick wall. And then there's the overcorrection in the other direction, which like turned to like, and I think all this stuff is like sort of the, it's easy to summarize that as um like a community trend, but really what it is like there's 3 or 4 boards that make like a huge impact and impacts other makers, and then they try to do something similar. Flex cuts are a huge thing now, right?
Yeah.
Or like Hull is a great example of like really designing something in order to maximize flex. It's all about preference, and you can't build preferences off of like what some dildo on the internet says, including me. Don't take me for
Yeah.
like face
Same. Hey,
value.
I
Like,
will. I will echo that.
don't
Not.
take anything for granted ever in life. Like, find out for yourself.
Yep. And like I'm gonna build the paintbrush proto from Young Zeus here probably on Thursday if it arrives in time. And
Nice.
like I want to be subjective about that, where it's like, hey, he's giving me this board. I'm gonna give my honest opinions on it, but you can't use just my stream as like words of gospel, right? Like you're gonna have to look at what
Yeah.
I did, and then you're gonna have to look at the board, and you're gonna have to decide: is it for me? Do I want this? Yeah, I'm gonna try and be as objective as possible, but at the same time, I might like it because it's a top mount or it's a gasket mount, copper plate. Maybe I really like that and I just don't know it. Then I'm like, oh my god, this board's amazing, but I don't want that to necessarily influence everybody to say like, oh, I have to go get this board. You have to make that decision on your own, and this hobby
Yeah.
is so subjective. You're gonna like what you're gonna like, and I'm not trashing it either way. If you like a really firm typing experience, great. If you like a board that feels like a Dell membrane, like that's great. It's still mechanical, but that's what you like, and I'm not going to be able to do that. So I want to chat real quick with some of the people because they've been putting in some comments, and you and I have been going back and forth. So Laszlo says, do we have any sense of the percentage of 40s or ortho users in the community? 10%, 5%? I don't know. I think we're a little bit larger than we think, but I still think we're a very, very tiny portion of the hobby, honestly.
It's so hard to estimate because it's like, well, is someone who buys like a K95 at Walmart, like, are they in the community? I don't think so. I mean, they own a mechanical keyboard, but unless you're like, check stuff out and like, commenting and or at least lurking, it's like, I don't know. Like, do we go by those sales? Do we go by like
RMK, like, is that as you kind of mentioned, is that like a good judge of the hobby? Because then you have Geek Hack and Desk Authority and those other sites. I would guess we're
we
small.
could look at. I guess you could probably, the closest you could get that might be apples to apples is like just take like the Mech Keys server, subtract all the people that are in 40s server as well,
Yep.
and then 40 server over Mech-Keys server,
Maybe
and that's, I guess,
good.
the closest you're gonna get.
Probably.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Like I said, I think we're a bigger percentage, but we're not really big in the grand scheme of things, right? Like obviously we are vocal, we make posts on like RMK or Geek Hack or whatever, but I think because we're so vocal, or some of us are, it tends to look a little bigger than we are. I don't know. And as you said, I don't think
that's probably true.
I don't think key set sales are an indication of that either, because as you said, we can be cheap, or we may not like the colorway, or like I said, I bought Modern Dolch Light because I felt really bad that we bullied Janglad into adding minivan support, and so I was like, well, if we beat him up this bad, I might as well support him. And he hit
fair.
MOQ on day one for the 40s kit with that set, which was awesome.
Nice.
And then, but if you look at the sales, it was like 100 key sets, and then over the next like 2 weeks, it was like 105, 100.
Oh, hey, what up, Ringo? See you tomorrow.
We got
my tattoo artist.
Oh, nice. Oh, hey, welcome. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Laszlo, no, sorry. Gnarly said 99 40s only set. 600 unusable meme board. Yes. When we were talking about the price of the boards, absolutely. I think that's how a lot of us feel. I bet Hedgey cringed when he putting in my Aquas and my MB4. No, actually, I like the Xylants, and I actually thought those felt really good once I lubed them. Zeal's just always kind of been a little overpriced in my opinion, and what I find fascinating is they just kind of released those. What they try to go back to like the V1 Xylants and Zelios, but their pricing is still like outrageous when you look at other options on the market. And I think that's their biggest downfall is they make good quality switches. They always have. Telios for the longest time were like the best linears you could get, but they're still like $1 a switch. It's still insanely expensive for switches. So I didn't cringe. I thought they were good. I still think you got a good deal on them, Dan. Just FYI. And I liked putting your board together. It was a very good build, very well thought out. So props to you on that. Get that said it can lead to an echo chamber. I think he was talking about like that streamer culture, and I think that's with any culture, right, or any hobby. Is you kind of listen to one expert, quote unquote, and then everybody parrots that, and then next thing you know, there's this big like movement or whatever it may be. And you alluded to, Andrew, that someone builds a board that kind of pushes the envelope. And I think gasket mount and the way that's evolved in that term, a lot of them are differently mounted gaskets, but like everybody uses that one term, gasket mount.
I also want to give like a huge shout out to someone who I feel like was like a pioneer who was like really, he made one board he never even ran the group by, but Christmas Kane, who made the staccato. He designed a 60% that's gorgeous. I think the IC is still up, but he basically, it was so early in like gasket mounting that he didn't end up, like, he wanted to do basically a ring gasket.
Okay.
And it was so hard to make that eventually I think he just like called it quits. But he's the one who like taught me how to do keyboard design. Him and actually Quantric has a video up, which I think is still on YouTube, where he walks you through designing like the whole, I think it's the Q, but yeah, there's like, and like Cahal is technically gasket mount, but like there's only 4, right? One, 2, 3, and then 4 mounting points, which I call sparse gasket. But like, does that have anything in common with like a full isolation mount, where like it's meant to be kind of sandwiched between the case and the the plate
gaskets,
is sandwiched by the case and the gaskets? Probably not. Like, there's not they're both dampened, but they're dampened in very different ways, and they have very different feels. And depending on whether you want to put flex cuts on that as well, I think that's it's a really broad range of feels you can get out of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as you said, I think the full gasket, that ring gasket, is not only is it hard to manufacture even today, but it's a waste of material when you think about it, because it's a circle, it's a ring, and it's closed off, and there's no way to manufacture that without wasting a ton of material or finding other reasons.
Just
so
like 90% waste.
Exactly. So I think everybody's kind of sticking to the mounts that go over the plate
strips.
tabs, or whatever makes sense for them. And like I said, I think 40s has always pushed the envelope a little bit in terms of design, and I've said this multiple times. And I think we give ourselves too much credit sometimes. I think there's some give and take between what we pick up from the bigger designers and the bigger boards, and what we bring, and then what we tweak and modify, and then that goes back the other way. Do you see that? Do you see there's like shared common themes as we talk about design between boards, and going between the small board community and the big boards and back and forth? Do you see that?
I definitely see. Well, one, I guess I have like some personal experience with that, because like Cahal got front page on Reddit. Like the first picture. Also, shout out to Ham Kenobi, who took the picture that actually got front page. But that got front page, and then I got 2,000 people, 2.5K responses to the Cahal interest check within like 3 or 4 weeks. I think really within the first day, but they trickled in. And from that, I got a ton of people that were like, yo, can I make like a Cahal, but it's the 65%? Or can I make a Cahal, but it's a TKL? And I'm like, fucking no. But not because like my idea is so unique or anything like that, but it's like, just do something, do your own thing. So yeah, no, I think that there's sometimes, I think mainly it's 40s takes ideas from outside and brings them sort of into the 40s community. But I don't see a lot of outward motion of those ideas from the 40s community to the larger community. There's always like a lot of innovation that I think happens in the 40s Discord. I mean, the thing that I love the most about 40s Discord is that like you cannot post anywhere in the keyword community that has a higher like makers to active users ratio. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Like almost everyone that posts, on the daily, besides, every once in a while you'll have like someone who's just like joins the server, has a quick question,
Yeah.
bounces. Besides those people who are many, people who are in there day in day out, like they almost certainly, with if they post there for 6 months or a year, they're going to end up trying to design something, they're going to end up running something, and I think that's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Whether that trickles out, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even look at the bigger community anymore. I'm really just interested in like what's happening. If it doesn't happen in like the Texas Discord or the 40s Discord, it's really tough for me to follow. There's so much.
I keep my eye on RMK. I stopped posting a whole lot. I mean, I made a post with the MB44 this evening, but like, there's a lot of bad opinions, and as you said, it's almost better to feel kind of comfortable in the 40s Discord or in like a very specific Discord because you know the people, you built a relationship.
I see some cold takes there too, but
yeah,
yeah,
but they're fewer and far between, right? Like that's the other piece
I don't
of
know.
that, so.
Like go look at switches sometime.
Oh, I don't go into switches. I stay out of that channel. I actually go to Alas for all my switch needs, and she hooks me up, and we're all good there. So like,
Yeah, she rules.
and she used to be somewhat close. She was only like 30 minutes from me in Kennesaw. So usually like when she started getting into like ordering a ton of switches, she just pinged me separately and be like, "Hey, I'm ordering these. This is how much. Do you want some?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I'd go like every month and pick up like 3 or 4 bags of switches, right? And that was I wish she was still here because I was lucky to be able to do that. Dan says this is random 40s question, but I don't see a lot of hot swap 40s boards. Is that because most folks like to solder? I actually think it's because of so many different layout options, and I talked about that when I was designing the Ocean. We had 3 different bottom row layouts, big space bar, and then 2 different split bar layouts. And to be able to do that with hot swap is almost impossible because they start to overlap each other. And like I think
you end up doing the Kumo thing where you have to either invert switches, which can cause compatibility issues,
or put them sideways.
Ugly. Yeah, there's some there. There's no perfect way, but I think the biggest thing is just that it makes your layout really set, and that can mess with flexibility. I decided to go with hot swap for Cahal just because really Cahal was like, I wanted to take everything that everyone asked me for with the neuron interest check and integrate them all into one board. Just like pull out all the stops, just shove as many features into it as I possibly could. And I'm glad I did. But it ended up, I don't really like hot swap. So right now, it's and that's for a number of reasons. Partly like I just had such a huge failure rate with the hot swap PCBs with just like 1 or 2 sockets not working, and then you're selling to a customer who isn't used to soldering, isn't used to troubleshooting. And I have like in this let's see if I'm putting it in that like cabinet on the left, I have about 20 Cahal PCBs that were sent back broken. Work perfectly. They work they're it's just
bent pins
people
or something along those lines,
or it's people's first board or something like that, and they're just not used to troubleshooting, or they don't know how to solder. So if there is a bad contact on it, it has to be immediately replaced. And a lot of those like I fix and then put out. Well, actually, I've held on to all of them, but I'm working on 2 special editions of this is exclusive. This is an exclusive for you.
We have a leak.
I'm working on 2 versions of Cahal. Actually, I have hinted a little bit in 40s Discord. But I'm working on 2 special editions of Cahal. One is a solid wood Cahal, which that'll be, I think, available in mahogany and maple.
Nice.
And then right now I'm working on a stacked acrylic version as well.
Okay.
And that'll be through Jake at P3D. We're working on prototypes now. So, but the PCBs that I will sell with both of those are going to be solder only.
Nice.
And that's to give people more flexibility with layout. I'm going to like work on a couple different layouts to kind of like play around. Like people wanted, on Cajal, like people have their preferences for like whether, the long space bars on the left or the right. I put it on the right because most people tend to hit the space bar with their right thumb.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my design choice there. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I also like I want to see like a 7U on the bottom of a Cajal. Like that'd be fun and cool and good. So yeah, it's flexibility really more than anything else. And also you can troubleshoot it more easily. You can bridge a bad contact, with a piece of wire. If you have a solder PCB, it's a little harder if you have a hot swap one.
Yeah. And Laszlo, I see you got to go. Thank you so much for hanging with us. I appreciate that. Please
Later,
come back.
Laszlo.
Please come back anytime. I need a button that anytime someone is on an interview and like does leaks, it does that stupid like horn, like like alerts people.
Or like they're like wah, 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 like the Kill Bill sounds.
Exactly. Like I need to get people like into it. Dan, if you want to come over at some point at any time, I'm happy to teach you to solder. It's super easy, and once you have that skill, it's so useful for like other things outside of keyboards. You'll be confident in like repairing electronics all of a sudden for no reason whatsoever. You'll be like, yeah, I can cut this wire and solder it, no big deal. And then next thing you know, it leads to other stuff. So I'd be happy to teach you. But yeah, like people asked in the Ocean interest check, like, hey, can we get this into hot swap? And I was like, no, we can't because of the layout. Like it really makes it hard. And I'm like, you should learn to solder. Like it's just one of those life skills that it's not expensive. It'll come in super handy when you need it. Like you're not going to know it and you're like, oh, I can fix this, like I kind of just mentioned. And like I want more people to feel comfortable doing that. And I remember at the 2018 Atlanta meetup, if you recall, that meetup was part of the Vintage Keyboard Festival that they had.
Oh yeah.
And that was a big deal. And so like we had our little section, our little corner, and I remember very specifically one of the tables in the festival was like 8 soldering stations, and it was for kids, and it was teaching them how to solder, and they walked away with like a cool little widget. I don't remember what it was, like it lit up or whatever. And I was like, that's such a great way to teach people a skill early on. They feel comfortable doing it. And I actually remember I had to solder something and I was like, hey, can I borrow this real fast? He's like, yeah, no problem. But like watching kids do that, and I was like, that's a great way. So like maybe at my spring meetup in 2022, we have a soldering station for new people, and like no judgment-free zone, right? Like come learn how to solder. We'll give you a small PCB with like 6 switches and you can take it home. And like, hey, congrats, you've soldered now, and now you can feel comfortable. Like I'm trying to think about how to progress new people into the hobby to feel more comfortable and to be more understanding. And like, I think that's what's missing from the hobby currently. And I don't know if you get that sense. Like I said, I'm on RMK way too much. I shouldn't be because it's very normie centric. But at the same time, like I see just a lot of ignorant statements because people don't know, or they don't want to learn, or they haven't thought about learning to do something. Just throwing that out there. Are you seeing that? Is that something that you feel, something like that?
So, I think the difference between, being a, being like a community of elitists and being a community of enthusiasts is the difference between, exclusion and inclusion. Like we're really passionate about keyboards. We've designed keyboards. We like post about keyboards. I've been like in the community for years, but I'm like totally willing to, like, if someone is having issues or they don't understand a concept, happy to explain it. No problem. I think some people really sort of get off on holding on to knowledge and siloing it and preventing other people from knowing it because it makes them feel special for knowing this arcane thing about this arcane, hobby. I think that needs to be like blown out the airlock of life. Like that's just that no one has ever felt good being talked down to about. Actually, no, that's not true. I did interview Krellbit in like 2019 when I was still doing a solo podcast called Board Culture, and he said that his like formative experience was getting shit on in Mekhi's Discord for having a
God.
magic force. That was like his like, oh god, I'm being owned. Like I feel like I'm like, you know, a part of it. And from that he like kind of like, I think that explains a lot about like if anyone knows who Krellbit is, like kind of how he is and what he's like. Um, but generally people don't. That's not a great introduction. You know,
Yeah.
people sometimes need to like have someone be like, hey man, like totally understand. So you gotta like, if you have any flux, you put the flux around it, and then you want to make so these are the things that you need to look for and make sure that you're doing and not doing, and then they know it forever. Like, you
No
know, a
one's
real
doing
teacher.
that though. That's the problem, is no one's doing that. And that's why, like, when I think meetup, I think grander scale than just come type on some boards. Like, I know some meetups do like little presentations of like people who are very well known in the hobby. I think that's important. I think you got to have that.
Totally.
I think workshops are good, like whether it's soldering or maybe you have a workshop on keyboard design, because I think that there are new people in the hobby who are probably very I don't know the word, not artistic, but very design driven, who probably just don't even know how to get started and don't know you can do it for free. You can get, you know, Fusion 360 for free, and you can have someone teach you the basics, and next thing you know, you start doing some YouTube videos and you've designed something. And you know, my knowledge literally started with Taylor telling me like, go download it, watch some videos, and then I'll come help you. And that's helped me tenfold when I replaced a damn cabinet part with my 3D printer, because I literally took the part out, reverse engineered it, and was like, okay, measure this, boom,
Modeled
boom, boom.
it, printed it. Yeah.
3 hours
And
later,
I think
I fixed it, right? Like,
and I think like that like desire to like gain the knowledge is unfortunately what brings people to, you know, I feel like shitty saying this on the stream, but you know, like I think that people come to like the big streamers because they want that knowledge, they want that kind of hand-holdy experience. But for the last 2 years, you know, there's no in-person meetups basically.
correct.
So you have to look for that online, but then with that, unfortunately, you have like a bunch of opinions rammed down your throat in the process, and it's really just like, no, like I just need to learn how to solder, like I just need to learn, you know, keyboard design or whatever. But you end up sort of getting a kind of echo chamber effect on the way to that, which I think is probably negative. So I really wish that there were more in-person meetups. One thing that we tried to do a ton in Houston is like, I tried to, before the pandemic hit, like every 2 weeks I tried to organize like a little mini meetup, and we'd go to like Pinkerton's Barbecue was like a great place we would go. There's also there's a food court downtown that was pretty centrally located. Like just like have people come out and like get a burger and like, hey, this is what did you build? And oh yeah, no, I think so. The reason your space bar is rattly is come check this out. So that's you know, like that kind of like calling someone in instead of calling them out. I hate that terminology, but
I think
being
you're
inclusive.
right. Yeah, let's have a stabilizer tuning session, right? Like show the 3 or 4 different ways that people tend to do it, and give you like the choice, right? I know I do it a little different than everybody else and other people, but like have that forum available that you don't feel intimidated. Like, hey, my spacebar is rattly, but I don't want to ask like how to fix it because that's such a noob question, right? Like, and as you said, there's this kind of step forward to get people into the hobby. At first, like I don't know why I hated the GMMK Pro. I can't tell you why I hated it, but I was like, man, this is like awful. It looks like Glorious just took some buzzwords and threw a board together, which I still think they did, but I didn't realize how many people it got into more of the enthusiast part of the hobby and away from just the gaming side, right? And it took me a minute to recognize, like, hey, these are people that could come with like some really awesome idea. And I started looking at it as, well, maybe there are people who might be interested in 40s, and then they can help advance that part of the hobby. So like, I think it's all a mindset and a framing of like how we view the new people. And as you said, unfortunately, a lot of them just get shit on when they first come into the hobby. They're like, here's my GMMK Pro with, you know, I don't know, GMK laser on it, and people are like, yeah, you're one of 1,000, congrats. And instead, people should be like, hey, wow, that's really awesome. What switches did you go with? Oh, I went with lavenders. Hey, if you like lavenders, you should check out KTT strawberries as well. And since it's hot swap, you can try them. Like, that should be the discourse. And what's happening is straight up people are just like, congrats, get your board out of here, we don't care. It's not a high-end group buy, you know, or
yeah. Although
and
I will say
of that.
this, like the people that I see, like, you know, and keyboard chat in 40% Discord is like one manifestation of this. But when I see new people come in and they ask a question, the people that are shittiest to them are one, people who I think are young and insecure, and also people who are also relatively new but feel like they just got past that. So what they're really doing is self-negating.
Yeah.
They're negating the them from 2 weeks ago in order to feel good about the them they are today. And I think that kind of like self-projection, you know, isn't something that's easy to outrun, right?
What's it,
But
the most dangerous drivers on the road are the 16-and-a-half-year-olds who've been driving for 6 months and they feel like they've gotten through that first stage, and it's the same thing in the hobby. They're like, oh, I got past that, but now I get to crap on everybody else, and it's not a good place.
there's like that, I forget what it's called. I should know it because it's a psychological effect, but that sort of inverted U-shaped curve of how much, you know, if this is time in a hobby,
Yep.
and this is confidence that you know everything, you
It
know,
goes down.
it's sort of, yeah, it's just like this, you know, where you have this like when you know just enough amount of stuff, you feel like you know everything, and then you get deeper and deeper and you realize you don't know shit.
Nope.
And which is where you started, you know, not knowing shit. And yeah, we just need to be nicer to new people, nicer to people who are just discovering the hobby.
I agree. Munko, thank you very much for the
Yeah,
follow.
it is Dunning-Kruger. Thank you, Pear.
Okay, awesome. Munko, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And welcome. I'm kind of curious. Are you familiar with Wallet or myself, and how'd you find here? And yeah, you asked what kicked off the keyboard hobby for you guys. I think Wallet and I touched on this right at the beginning. So kind of that gaming 60% aspect of like wanting something a little more advanced at the time, and I, you know, Andrew's about a year ahead of me in terms of coming into the hobby. So he got the poker, I went with the An Pro, but yeah, that was kind of the thing. And oh, you saw his Instagram story. Well, welcome, thank you so much. But yeah, like, you know, it's just kind of, I think it's a natural progression for a lot of people. I actually wasn't into gaming. I'm in sales, so I'm on a keyboard all day, a lot of emails, and I was on Reddit, and I saw like this cool, it was actually, I think it was a WASD keyboard, and I saw it had cool keycaps, and I'm like, oh, that's really neat. And I remember like,
that's a throwback.
I remember I looked at the website though, and I was like, $150? Who's paying this for keyboards? Yeah. Like, wow.
No, I remember I lived with another guy in my PhD program, and I remember I like bragged. I was like, "Hey man, you want to try what $100 keyboard feels like?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Oh my god, it feels so cool!" Like, oh.
And yeah, and then flash forward to like 3 years later, and I'm buying like $500 group buy boards, you know.
I'm selling $400 keyboard. Yeah, it's
oh my
you know,
god, like, yeah,
it's like reaching the event horizon in a black hole. You just start accelerating forward at like an impossible rate.
And it is funny to look back and be like, wow, that was so much money back then to yourself, and then now you look and you're like, man, I'm so deep into it. Like, although I still have trouble justifying very, very expensive purchases. Like, they have to make sense to me. And maybe this is a good segue, because if you've noticed over the last 24 hours or so, the Satisfaction 75 round 2s have started making it into people's hands, and immediately they're up on Mech Market, and immediately they're going for $1,500. And
yeah,
I remember the reason that the round 1 were going for so much is because it was a smaller sale. People really liked the design, they missed out on it, so they were paying more. If I recall, Candy Keys sold like 1,000 of round 2, right? Like, it was some stupidly high number.
I think it was a lot. I remember that. And
I hope this comes down. I hope that this is the initial wave, because I hate the idea that we're now at the point where people are selling 1,000 units of a keyboard and they're going for, you know, 3 times the group buy price. Like, that's I still struggle with that. I understand it on a low run,
yeah, but
on a large run, I'm like, man, that's a struggle for me. It's a stretch.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, that's So, there were like 230 sales in the Cajal group buy, and I bought 350.
Right.
And the reason I bought 350 is one, I know that it sold out in 3 minutes. So I want to make sure that people like will get those boards, and that's about as many as I could get with like the profit margin and stuff like that, where I didn't feel totally exposed, right?
Sure.
If something
Sure.
went wrong, and things did go wrong. But anyway, I wanted to try to control the aftermarket by basically offering like unpredictable rounds and waves of Cajals after the fact, so that if you wanted to buy a Cajal as a speculative investment, you were gonna get fucked
Yeah.
because like if you bought like a Cajal for $400 and you wanted to sell it for 800, it's gonna be kind of tough if people see that I'm selling them on my website for 500. You know what I
Correct.
mean? Like, which is basically what you would pay for if you got like one extra PCB plus shipping and handling and tax. That's about what it would be.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a great idea. By the way, like at first I was like, man, I don't understand this, but now that you just kind of laid it out, is it wrong that we want to control the aftermarket a little bit?
I so it's tricky, right? Like I got a ton of shit thrown at me for that, and part of that is just like you see me selling something for 500, and I think eventually I like posted my formula, which is basically I took like whatever the last five mech market sales for the Cajal were, and then I averaged the difference between that and the group buy price. So that
Oh,
basically
nice.
whatever I halved whatever potential
It's a
profit
small
margin there
markup.
would be.
It's not a crazy markup. That's cool.
Well, it ended up being like 600, and then I got called out for that rightly, and then I was like, okay, fuck it, like 550 is like the highest that I'm gonna go, like,
Yeah.
but it was really driven by like, yeah, me seeing like these huge unlimited sales that I don't feel like should have ever reached. Like, I mean, like I saw neurons go for 800.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. It sold for 230. Like I
Yeah.
sold it for $230, and I see them for that. It makes me feel bad for people who are discovering it late,
Mm-hmm.
and it also like I don't think that this is ever going to go away, unfortunately, like because people are always going to like, but like there's flash sales for everything, and like there's a t-shirt designer on Instagram I like, named Meth Syndicate. Edgy name, I know, but he
Okay.
makes some fantastic shirts. um they're really hard to sales to get into because it'll be like it's open for like 5 minutes and then it's gone. I see people reselling them on like eBay or whatever for like their $20 $30 shirts. They're going for 100. um this is a phenomenon that extends so far outside of keyboards,
I know.
and part of it is just the rate at which the keyboard community is growing and the amount of hype around it. But the other part of it is like people see the internet as a place to make money, and they're
Yeah.
just going to keep doing that. So I don't
The
know what the answer is, but I
the
don't think it's
uh,
going
the
anywhere.
Braves. No, shout out World Series champs. Let's go.
Whoop, whoop.
Sorry, beat the Astros. You know they
Baseball
had
is the worst sport. I don't care, but
they
I'm happy for you.
Thank you. They had the parade, and then there was the parade ended at the ballpark at Truist Park, and they had free tickets, like literally free attendance tickets, and there were people literally scalping free tickets, like off $50, and like it made me be like, wow, that's really crappy. And I was like, is there a difference between that and what happens on Mech Market? And
Really.
I guess not really. Like Wheat for Ocean, I think Taylor and I ordered 35% extra to account for B stock because he specifically referenced the MB44 and said there were a lot that came through, and like right at like 30% extras is what they needed to cover all the group buy boards. And so
Mhm.
we want to have enough to have extras. Now, I think we will have extras. I hope we're not going to get, a ton where there's B stock
B
issues.
stocks and yeah.
But at the same time, I also want to hook up the people who've been good to me and I've been good to them. So like there's certain people in this very chat who have asked, hey, if there's extras available, can I be first in line? Yeah, and I'm probably gonna sell it to you right at group buy price because you've asked
Yeah.
nicely and we've made friends and whatnot. There will be extras, and I will sell them for a small upcharge, but I'm not gonna put them out there. It was a $350 board. I'm not gonna be like, hey, $600 for this extra. Like that's messed up. But
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
I fully expect like the first day they're in someone's hands, it's
800.
gonna be on
Yeah.
Back Market for double. Like yeah, seven hundred
Yeah.
dollars right now, and I can't control that. I can't if you want
Yeah.
to sell it. Yeah, but I hope that people kind of look and say, is that board really worth that much? And the problem is, it's up to the buyers to control the market. That's the downside.
Yeah. And what I learned from Cajal is like, you can't obsess over that. Like I tried a little crusade against the free market, and I kind of won and I kind of lost, and it took a lot of my time.
Yep.
And I don't know if I'm gonna do that in the future. It's so much bigger than keyboards, unfortunately.
It's a culture
Yeah,
in itself, right? Like it's a flipping culture. Like that's
yeah.
the thing. And
It's well, it's it's uh it's speculative investing with a commodity.
yep,
And part of that is just like, so I think people kind of like lack the language to really talk about this phenomenon, but to me what it is it's just like, it's when the market value is so far from the intrinsic value, which is like the value of the machining and the profit for the designer to make it worth their time, and to like the shipping and the handling and all that stuff. That's this. And then everything in between there is just a barrier between like someone who can enjoy it and someone who wants to make a lot of money, and
yep,
and that's always awful.
yeah. I agree with that. It's you're right. It extends to every hobby and every piece. I'm sure, like as you mentioned, guns. I don't know what we can talk about on Twitch. I don't want to get in trouble. But like, there's this whole right. There's a whole resale hobby or resale market for that, and
Yeah.
obviously it extends
And
to
2020 was awful for that. Like, people were really scared about a lot of stuff, and I saw, M16 mags that were used army surplus, like used in Desert Storm, going for $100. I mean, that's
well, now you can
yeah,
now you can print your own stuff. I've got a rubber band gun that I found out. It took me like 8 days to print it, but I found out that the parts.
rubber band gun.
It is.
ATF, if
It
you're
is.
listening,
Yeah. No, straight up, it is. But I found out like the parts are legit the models of the real thing. So like, if you don't have a handle for an AR, you could go.
Mhm.
You could go legit print one. I wouldn't print a barrel or a receiver, but just out of like so. I think we're at this weird point in time for a lot of hobbies where you can start doing things on your own. You can make things outside of like super intricate electronics. Like I think the hobby hit the hardest is the PC hobby. I built my new PC right at like February of 2020, right before all the prices like absolutely exploded, right before the new 3000 cards came out. So like, I got a 2070 Super for $500, and that I overpaid because it was white. Like I wanted a white one, I overpaid for it. But
I have a 2060 Super that I think I got for 4 or 5. Yeah,
right,
like I right in under the
and now like you want a 2070, it's probably $800 or $900 easily, right? And it's I get it. I was hoping that with keyboards it would be a little bit different based on the sales and the amount. Like I said, the Satisfaction was so popular because people found it late. They ran this huge sale. They had, I think it was like 1,000 units, and here it is coming out at the same price in the aftermarket, and these people are paying it. And I'm like, I get there's this fear of missing out, but it's up to the buyers to set that market. Like the seller can say, "Hey, I want 1,500," but if a buyer pays it, then shit, that's the market, unfortunately. And
if there's 10,000 people who are interested and there's 10 sales and they're all at 1,500, it is unfortunate that such a statistically insignificant number of people who probably have deep pockets to begin with are going to set that price. But these are market forces again that like you can't. Good luck sweeping back the sea.
Oh yeah,
it's just like it's no individual buyer or maker like is really able to control that stuff. Part of it is like, I've always wondered whether there's like if Mac Market even wanted to regulate, could you? And the answer is no.
No.
Like, you would just go around it. Like, I see so many sales happen in DMs and Discord. Like, it's gonna happen any.
And there's still tons of bidding that happens in Mech Market. People just don't know it, right? Like I very specifically remember when I sold my Space 65 the first round, and I felt awful. Like I posted it like $630, but I'm like, the market dictates that I sell it for this much. I was actually kind of tired of it already. Like I'd had it like a month. I'm like, I don't like this board anymore. and I put it up, and like within 3 minutes, I think I had like 15 PMs. It was insane. And I had people being like, I don't care what someone else said, I'll pay you 800 for this. And like I was really tempted, but I stuck with my gut and said, okay, first come, first serve, because that's what I said. And I sold it to that first guy for asking. And I had people like angry at me. They were like, I can't believe you sold it to him. I offered you twice as much. And I'm like, it wasn't about the money. Like it was more about like, I did want to make some money, but I don't want to be like a dick. And there's something to be said about it. Now, granted, it won't get you very far, I guess, in life, but there's something to be said about like just trying to do the right thing in the aftermarket. I don't know. It's just how I feel.
I guess like in my mind, like trying to make sense of like why that guy was like, "Fuck you! I offered you more." It kind of. Do you remember when when like the Szechuan sauce was offered?
Oh my god, at McDonald's.
as it was like part of the Rick and Morty thing. Like I know there was like a joke on Rick and Morty. He's like, the Szechuan sauce was like so good or whatever. And I think one of the reasons, like, why so many people lost their mind when, like, the 10 packets of Szechuan sauce that got sent to some McDonald's in the Midwest sold out, and then they just, like, rioted, was that people have so little control in their lives, right? They go to work and their boss yells at them. They go to, they come home and they don't have enough money or time to do the things that they want to do. But when they finally set aside that time or that money to do what they want to do and feel like some sense of control over their lives, when it gets taken away from them, they freak out. And it doesn't matter whether it's Szechuan sauce or it's like an M16 mag or it's you know, a $2,000 board that they're paying twice as much for. When people feel like they don't have like a sense of control over their own happiness, they freak out. And it's irrational, but there's a sense of it that I guess to me makes sense. It's sad, but it's the way it is.
Monko mentioned the Ramas and their aftermarket value.
I
feel like they're a little more stabilized now than they were 2 years ago, a year ago. Like I think it was a year ago. My time's running all together at this point. I bought a Rama Koyu in black, the Kuru or whatever they said, whatever it's called. With like novel keys, box switches from this guy, like $500. Like I thought I paid a little much for it. I was like, man, it's expensive. And don't get me wrong, like Ramas are really, really nice. And then pandemic.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him as a designer. Like he's a very coherent aesthetic. There's some of his business choices I wouldn't have made, but like in general, I have a lot of respect for him. Yeah.
So then pandemic hit, and that summer in 2020, like the prices started to skyrocket, and like I was sitting on it, and I saw the prices that some of them were going for, and like I'm guilty of this, but I was like, man, I can buy like 2 other boards that I really want, and I can get rid of this. I sold that thing for $900 without switches because it was in such high demand. And like,
it puts you in a tough position because, like, say you sell it at group buy price, you incentivize someone else to flip it
immediately.
You know, immediately. Yeah. So it's you know, everyone's fucked.
Well, and I feel bad because when I buy boards, not through Discord, but like through Mech Market, if I see something like, God forbid, there's a Pearl on there. Like, I know the Pearl's not the right example. It used to be like certain boards, I would very much take into account, can I sell this for what I paid for it if I want to get out of it? Like, that's always at least the way I looked at it. Like, not to make money, but just am I going to buy this and totally screw myself? And where I found like I've hurt myself in that part of the hobby is artisans. I cannot get rid of my Nightcaps ETF artisans. Like I'm offering them well under list, and people don't want them. And like I look back, I think I put myself like, I won't say in debt because in debt's not the right word. I put myself like down $1,400 in artisans because I can't get rid of them at this point, and it's insane. Like they're rare, especially like the Sky Moto ones I have, but I cannot unload them. And that was the one thing, like, and maybe this is good advice for anybody who's joined in this stream because they saw you or whatever. Don't go in trying to make money. That's like, unless you're buying GMK keycaps and you're planning and you're very patient, you're willing to immediately sell them for like $300. don't go and try to make money because it's not going to work. Like if you don't know the hobby and you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to kick yourself in the ass when you lose out on tons of money. Like it's just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the artisans that so I, I was in Gray Hat, I was in the fucking keycap Illuminati. I was like, I was really into it, and I was like buying a lot of stuff really beyond my means. Making 32K as a graduate student. Um, and part of it is I just wanted that rush of buying it and having it be on the way and holding it in my hand and knowing that it's rare and interesting. But there's definitely times where I was like, oh, like, will this hold value, or is this person undervaluing this? I think so, I want it, but then there's that added thing. And I think artisans are definitely one of those spaces where I would definitely discourage people from trying
Yeah,
to use that as speculative investments. It
that's an
used to
awful
be that
one.
like especially with ETFs, like you could just count on like some sale that would just like some 420 sale, and you get the sculpt you don't want, you could
Flip
immediately
it.
scalp it for plus
Yep.
40, plus 50, whatever. um I think those days are done for so many different makers, and I really think it's kind of a good thing, because it's like people only buy it if they really want to put it on their keyboard a
Yep.
lot of the time. It's getting back to that, and because I think people are realizing you know those markets are too volatile, so now they're just like returning to like regular, like intrinsic value markets, which is
That's
cool and good.
that's the mistake I made actually with one of the ETF sets that I had
Yeah.
is I wanted the complete set to say I had it, and then I managed to do it. I was like, this is awesome, and then I was like, but I don't ever put them on my boards. I don't really care, and that's
Yeah.
when I was like, oh crap, did I get into this part of the hobby for the wrong reason? And it not necessarily. I thought a lot of them were really cool, but they never made it anywhere. They sat in a box, and I'm like, man, I screwed up, so let me just go ahead and sell them. And then, like,
Yeah.
right as I wanted to sell them is when everybody kind of went, yeah, we don't like ETFs anymore, so tough shit. And, I was like, man, I really put
We're into
myself in a hole.
bongos now.
Yeah, bongos
Yeah.
or albumins, right? Albumins are huge.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
felt bad selling.
Shout out to Frank.
Yeah, hey, the good people at Prime Caps. I really, really
Oh,
like them.
absolute sweeties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I like some of their older stuff too, like the old SA profile ones they have, like the Deep Galaxy.
The in caps.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
have a I,
those.
I still have a stake cap that they gave to I think it was one of the Austin meetups, where it's like a T-bone steak in a SA R1 cap. But yeah, no, there's all kinds of really beautiful artwork out there. There's a lot of really small makers.
Hmm.
Also, like I feel like for a while, like maybe this is still true. Maybe I'm being naive, but I feel like there used to be a lot more artisans that were getting in it because it's like, okay, it's like $4 to $10 worth of resin, and it's a lot more in equipment, right? Like,
Hmm.
don't be like, oh, it costs $10, why are they selling it for 60 or whatever? There's a lot of work that goes into it.
Oh, absolutely.
um but I think like there was a lot of artists that were getting into it because they just saw a way to
Money.
get really rich really quickly, and I feel like that is cratering a little bit, which is cool, because then people are getting into it because they really like the art, or they want to make the art and stuff like that, and I think that's great.
I'll be
Probably
interested
the
to ask
artisan.
Tiny about that actually, because
Oh
she'll
yeah,
be the
yeah.
perfect person to talk about that, because I calculated the total sales, not the profit, obviously, the total
Mhm,
sales from
yeah.
like one of the Poison Summers, and I think it was somewhere like total sales was $130,000 or something like that.
That's
So I can
good for
see
him.
I
Yeah,
can see
or good for
why,
them.
right? I can see why that could look very appealing to people. But you're right, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and as you
Yeah.
said, a lot of it is, do you make a sculpt that people want, and is it popular? And that's, a lot of people make some really cool stuff, but it's just not desired or popular or what have you.
Yeah. Or like I can think of like a lot of really cool sculpts by really cool people that just don't have a market, but I think are great. Probably the cap that means the most to me though is I interviewed Kudos, aka Gaff,
Okay.
um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and um, wasn't fishing or anything, but he said, "Hey man, like that was great. I love talking to you." And he sent me an OGT bead Trash Panda
Nice.
colorway, or sorry, type beast.
Yep.
He sent me a type beast, and it is absolutely my favorite cap. But all the caps that I have now, I have like sentimental attachment to, whether
Right.
they're like really early prime caps that just like make me happy, or like they were ones that I saw on Reddit that like I couldn't find for years, and then all of a sudden I see them for like $20 in some random sale, and I just grab them, or they were gifts or something like that, or I associate them with someone who's no longer in the community anymore, something like that. But yeah, it's artisans are just a different
Oh
beast.
yeah.
They have so much harder market
Oh,
forces working.
absolutely. Shout out to Forest Caps because he came to the South Carolina meetup and gave everybody there a custom artisan cap. There was like, I don't know, 12 to choose from, and it was part of like the end giveaway. And so I got one, and I will never get rid of that thing. Like, it's cool. It's a little blue and spiky, and it's kind of like this weird square, but like I love it. Like, I'm not gonna, as you said, there's like a weird sentimental value, right? I'm holding on to, and I know we've kind of switch courses, we're in artisan discussion, but I'm holding on to a set, a gamer set with a Alpha Caps Jedi blinker, the Splinter Cell blinker with, I think they call it the Slime something gamer set. There's only, and you talked about exclusive, there's only 2 of those sets out there in that colorway. In fact,
Yeah.
I think it was 2018, Alpha Caps did 9 times 4, what's that, wow, I'm an idiot. 1, 2, 3, 4.
36.
36 gamer sets or colorways that they did, where they did between 1 and 3 total per colorway. And so, like, there's some really rare stuff out there. And I actually like buying and collecting on exclusivity, but not for resale. Just to kind of say I have it, which I don't know if that makes me pretentious, but like, I've talked about it. I've got that orange pearl. I'm pretty sure, and Coop's kind of verified. There were only 2 orange pearls sold in that run.
I can't believe he still made them.
I know, right?
There's
Like,
only 2, yeah.
which I would like to actually go back into that conversation a little bit too, because what I think he did was really special. But there's only 2, and one of them was publicly talked about on Geek Hack in the thread, where they split the top and the bottom case. 2 guys did between a teal and a orange buyer. So technically, I have the only complete orange pearl, which is like I said, I'm not trying to like boast on that, but it's like, it's cool. I have like a piece of history, right? And and that's maybe why I like collecting certain things. Like, that's why I'm so thankful you sold me Garbage Truck. You know, there's only 30 of them, and they're really cool. It's a great design. It's kind of up my alley. Top mount, FR4 plate. Like, I will cherish that.
I like to think I had like a little baby hand in the size of that knob. Like, just, I feel like he stuck a hole and he was like, I'll fucking see you, a large knob, asshole.
and then I went the other way on Ocean. I'm like, hey, my little 14 millimeter knob. It's like super tiny.
Well, yeah, Coop did the same thing, right? He added a small knob to the back of Pandora,
Yep.
I think.
Yep. And
But Coop's been doing all kinds of kooky stuff. Like, now he's adding USB hubs, and I really I want to, as a maker, I really want to reach a point of complete self-sufficiency where I can do a lot of the PCB design as well. That's the only thing that I haven't done, kind of in-house. But like
sorry,
but,
Taylor's
in that, yeah. That's wild. but yeah, I think part of it is like PCB stuff is like progressing so quickly. Like, Bluetooth wasn't something people talked about last year, and now it's like, it's a thing. Knobs weren't a thing that people talked about 2 years ago, and then last year so many like designs had it. There's so many like innovations moving forward where people see it, and then they kind of like want to make sure that their keyboard incorporates it. And
yeah,
so I wouldn't even know where to start with like PCB design. It's so tough.
Well, like as you said, people want to kind of grab something that someone else has done. I think that's where the hobby is in a good place, right? Is that there's a lot more people open to sharing things, not necessarily sharing designs, but ideas, right? And as you said, Coob is kind of kooky and he pushes the envelope a little bit, but that's such a good thing. Like, he said, wow, the HHKB comes with 2 USB ports in the back. Why aren't those in my boards? And now all of his boards are going to incorporate that. And as you said, oh, hey, I really like wireless. Why don't I? And so I do think that that's a good place. And I still, like, when I look back at like what he did with Pearl, I'm like 99% sure that was his first board. And
I think it was, yeah.
And he did it because he was passionate and he wanted something that he wanted, which is really cool. And and B, he numbered all the weights, and like I can't imagine because I don't know if he had to
I
design.
can't imagine. Like you can do that. Like I've talked to my factories before about like serializing stuff, but it is such a pain in the ass,
Yeah,
and
because
I
you
would
got to
hate to
change the
like.
file for each time you do the weight, right? Like there's no easy
Well,
way to do that.
you can add like a digits place, and then you send the SVGs and stuff. You can work around it. There's ways to do it, but I would hate to like it's hard enough packing orders. Like I'm kind of a one man band and
Sure.
always have been. I do partner with sort of some friends that come by and like help me pack orders. But other than that, like I do everything in house, and part of that is because one, I want like sorry, I don't know what that was.
It's all good.
I want like a really like extreme amount of control over like what's happening. I see people grow too big for their britches and their quality falls.
Steps down, right?
Um, yeah, it sucks. But I also like kind of yeah, it's tricky. I think Coob, like when I received my Pearl and it was like very obviously hand packed, like in a flat rate
Uh huh.
box, I think. Um, and like the weights were so tight, you had to like some like if it was hot out when your package was outside, you literally had to put it in the freezer
So
because
shrink.
so that it would shrink so that like the tolerances would fit. Like that was like a really formative experience for me. So I like always want to have that like kind of like hand packed kind of feel to everything. But yeah, I think a lot of people they design a cool keyboard and then they contact a big vendor and that's kind of the end of it, and then it's out of their hands. I don't ever want to be like that. I really want to keep things like in house.
Yeah, yeah, Taylor, you hear that? Since Taylor's my big vendor, and I also like his comment about the Beppo van 20-step files. Like, I can't imagine 250 ocean files trying to do serialized weights. Like that's just
Dude,
yeah, it's
even
too
just
much.
like the little like the knot or the gasket holders in the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of the cajal, those little tiny pieces that you have to like put together. Like I'm gonna try to like really actively pursue like simple, straightforward, elegant designs in the future, and that's one of the ideas with Neuron V2.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that, since I know that kind of took a different direction from the V1, and I believe V2 is wireless, correct?
Yeah. So that's a collaborate. So I've always collaborated with people on my PCBs. I worked with WorldSpawn for the Neuron and the Cajal,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm working with Taylor. And really, that's because I was so impressed with the Paul. And he's in chat. No bless with Leech. And like I wanted to take a lot of like I wanted to leave like the layout pretty much the same from the V1 to the V2, but I wanted to integrate Bluetooth and I wanted it to kind of have like a more aggressive stance. I think one thing, I love the Neuron V1. I still use one every day, but it's a rectangle and there's so many rectangles. So I kind of wanted to play around with like the geometry a little bit. And one guy actually in the interest check was like, it looks like it's been smushed because like it sort of like has kind of like an elephant foot kind of like flare out. I think there might have been like some unconscious like influence from like the Bauer or there's some other designs that kind of have that kind of like flared foot. But yeah, no, I just wanted to make like a lighter neuron that people could actually like take places.
Yeah,
That was another kind of inspiration.
travel is obviously it's not as important at the moment. But when I had my previous job, so I got a new job in February of this year, but before that, I was in manufacturing sales. So in 2019, pre-pandemic, I was traveling twice a month at least, and I had a lot of
Mhm.
customers in LA. So like, I was bringing, whether it was like my minivan, or I can't remember the other board I had, where like travel boards were important to me, because I liked them. I liked having them. They were always good conversation pieces too. Like especially when at a you'd be like at a customer site and they're like, hey, let's sit down and take notes, and then you pull out your keyboard and they're like, oh, what's
Mhm.
that, and then you start a conversation on that, right? So
Yeah.
so no, that's cool. And I think the idea of, as you said, everybody kind of going wireless now is more, it's gaining popularity, it's more feasible. That'll be a big deal for a lot of people because they like that idea of portability, or hey, maybe I just want to sit on my couch and connect to my TV and watch YouTube and type up something, right?
That is exactly how I use my paw. So paw was one of Taylor's projects. For those that don't
Yep.
know, it's basically just like a up, down, left, right
Here.
arrow cluster. That's it.
Right here. There you go.
And I was just super impressed with that. I mean, I use that to control my Plex on my TV when I
Okay.
have my laptop plugged in, and that lets me just go through movies and stuff like that. But
I actually used it for a sales presentation since it fits in your
Oh,
hand
nice.
like this really well. So
yeah, you
PowerPoint.
can use it to control PowerPoint.
Yep,
Yeah,
boop,
yeah,
boop,
perfect.
clicking through, and they were like, and it's nice because like I know the remotes are a little more sleek, but just having it in my hand and just being able to do that like was really cool. And then of course at the end you set it down and people are like, wait, what is that? And then you can talk about it. Like I said, it's a conversation piece, right? And yeah. What was it? Dingus was the one who designed that, right? I think it was Dingus.
It was Dingus and Taylor together. I think.
And it's really cool. I really do like this. It's I probably won't sell this either. So it's like Dingus and Taylor in your pocket cheering you on. Hey, what's up next? But yeah, like it's the little things I think in design that you can have a really good looking keyboard, but what's the usability of it? What's the what's the usability, and is it long-term usable? I think that's the big thing too, for sure. Where was I going with that thought? My train of thought just like disappeared on me.
Well, I have something to say to that. Yeah, so people have I guess one of the things that I've always wanted to do is make like a split ergo board. Like there's like the mini docks, or there's a ton of what was it, the corn or the corny?
Yep.
I don't know.
Corn.
Which.
Yeah.
And I think those are great, but like I could never make one, and it's not because I like couldn't make a case that I think would be interesting or would add something to the design conversation or whatever. One of the inspirations for like doing the Neuron the way I did is I always look at architecture when I can't like come up with a new design idea. When I feel like I've hit the wall, I feel like architecture really is the big leagues. It's that or product design in terms of like people using design concepts in like an artful, interesting, elegant way. But with sort of trying to make like a board that I can't use is just not something that I think I can excel at, because it's like, if I can't use it every day and know what's good and bad about it, and know the layout like the back of my hand, then I'm just not going to make it, because I don't think I can add something to that conversation that's like meaningful, that someone else who uses it every day can't like immediately walk in and like see what's wrong with what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like I stay away from that.
No, I actually think it makes sense, because when you design like a 60%, your layout is going to be very much the same, or you're going to have like 2 or 3 options for like split backspace, or function key shift on the right side, right? Very
ISO and
So like case design is about all you can do. With 40s, 60 and below, there's so many different layouts, and like as you kind of said, unless I really want something, it's really hard for me to come up with my head like how to design that. And like I have a lot of ideas, but I'm like, do I really want it? And like one of those ideas I have is a folding, low profile chalk keycap split board that literally folds for travel. But as much as I want to design that, like I don't really want it. So it's hard for me to like.
It takes all the like
motivation
fire out of it.
Yeah, like I don't go into Fusion and be like, let me design this. Meanwhile, like when I was with the inspiration for Police Van for the Copra mount or Copra van board hit me, because I was like, man, I really like the HHKB, and I still have mine. And when I brought it to the meetup, I brought my Copra mount Alpha 28. And the guy from Forest Keys, I can't remember his name, he brought his HHKB, and we were comparing, because he had heavy domes, I had ultralights. I'm like, oh, that's really great. And I said, type on that Alpha. He's like, why? And I'm like, because it's got rubber domes on it. Just try it. And he was like, wow, this is fantastic. It feels just like a Topra. And I'm like, yeah, it's called Copra mount. Here's where it is. And then like I was driving home, 2 months later, and I was like, why don't I do a what's the word I'm looking for? Do a thing to replicate the HHKB, but in a 40, and we can do it with
Yeah.
with the cop car mount. Like, why not do that? And my biggest hangup has just been getting this company TGX to like sell me the stupid rubber dome sheet. Like, I actually called their head of sales and I was like, hey, can I just buy the sheets? Like, that's all I want to do is I just want to buy like 30 of the sheets. I don't want any other parts. I'm not asking for like any of your IP. Like, just that's all I want. And he was like, yeah, I don't see why we can't do that. Well, that was a month ago. He hasn't gotten back to me yet, so I'm gonna call him again this week. But like, there's that fire to design something that I want to share with people. But that's the only thing that like gets me into Fusion. Otherwise, if like I come up with an idea but I'm not really into it, I'm not motivated to go design it, and that's part of the problem too.
and I went down that route too. I wanted to, and actually me and WorldSpawn for a while we were trying to work on an electrocapacitive 40%. Like straight up, like the same sensing mechanism that the HHKB uses. I know you know that for the benefit of the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is such a pain. I have so much respect for Norbauer for like getting his like HHKB project done, the Holy Grail or the Heavy Grail. There's so many kind of issues, and I think you found a really elegant solution to that, which is like kind of like best of both worlds, between availability and even then, like you're running into issues. It sounds like. So imagine having to get electrocapacitive working, and I don't know what the hell is happening with the Conundrum Group I.
Oh, I forgot about that board. That's the
sorry.
I forgot about that board. That's the Ortho one, right?
Yeah. That's the Ortho 40%. Yeah, I think it's like in the 40% server, it's listed as being in group by hell. But I remember wanting to talk to that guy about like, how did you get it running? Like, how did that get going? And it turned into like some spicy posting back and forth. But it's I think that would be like the next great frontier is like if we can start doing electrocapacitive kind of Topre stuff in a smaller package, or better yet, if Topre starts working on kind of like an almost MX footprint compatible, like a self-contained switch, which I think would have so many advantages. These are all pie in the sky things, but it would be great,
absolutely.
Huh?
Absolutely. And shout out Fruity. I'm glad I could kind of help you describe that feeling. Right? It's a motivation thing more than anything else for me. Like, I have a design in my head, and Obabo actually kind of came up with what I wanted to do. For a very large board that I own.
The gravestone?
Sort of. I wanted to do more with that, more like the elephant. But it's twofold. A, I thought I was motivated to do it, and it turns out I'm not as motivated as I thought. And B, I don't want to step on Jackie, not Lazy Designer, but the other Jackie. I don't want to step on his foot and do something without asking him. That's like... I feel like that's a big no-no, because I do want to basically copy the damn thing, but I don't want to like come out with it and then him find it and be like, did you just basically take all my designs? Even though it's a totally different layout, it's a totally different size. Like, I feel like that's really messed up. And ironically, what I was struggling with is doing the shaping for the front of the board. And however he did it with the elephant is really well done. And I'm sucking with this. But Obabo did one, and it like is almost an exact replica. So there's like, it's like twofold, right? I have all these ideas, I write them down, I want to do them, but do I really want to do them? And if I do we want to do them to completion? So it's there's multifaceted for sure.
It's tough, and like Mizo, my like 60% case that just has never been realized is a great example of that. I don't use 60%. I designed this whole board.
I was gonna ask about
one.
it.
One, I think.
Your site. Sorry.
Yeah. So like one is like, I think it's a perfectly fine board. I don't think it adds anything to the conversation about. So initially it was going to be like an integrated sandwich mount where the plate would shoot through the entire board.
Yep.
Eventually I ended up making it top mount because those people wanted that more. But it's probably never going to run because I don't have any motivation to do it, and I love 40 so much. And it's like I'm like a 40% partisan. Like I have like a cause that I give a shit about, that I have like a personal connection to, and that I use it every single day. And it's like, does the world need another 60%? Like, probably not that I can design. Like, I people like my work, but like, do I want to make it? Probably not.
So,
So
so
I'll
would you
probably
ever
almost
do
sell
a
it.
Cahal 65%?
Yeah. I've thought about it. Here's what I'll say. If I ever leave science and I need to like very easily make like 100 grand to live on for a year, I would love to make a 65% call. Like I feel like that would sell really well,
Yeah.
and it would. If I leave science, I will need to pay the bills, and that would be a very easy way to do it, probably.
So sitting in my
Um,
admin files in Fusion is the very basic
uh,
65% of the ocean called the Ocean Voyager, and then
oh, nice.
I have a 100% called the Ocean Master. But
Oh, nice.
it's literally just the outline of the case and the holes for the keycaps, and that's it. Like I
Mhm.
was like, man, this is a great idea. I can have a whole series of boards, and I think the problem was I was thinking about like, man, the 100% is like an untapped market, and in reality, it's not. It is viable, but I was like, oh, I'm doing this for the money, not because I like enjoy designing. It's more like, oh,
Yeah.
I could make some decent money off this and make some people happy, but it's not making me happy. It's not making me want to drive and strive to design this board. It would just be like satisfying or scratching that itch for some people. And while that's good,
Yeah.
if I deliver a subpar product, then my reputation is stained and it's not worth the hassle. So
Like,
they're
dude,
there.
I almost stopped after the prototype run for Neuron because I was like, well, I made the thing I wanted. Like, like it's such a motivational dead zone, or it was such a motivational dead zone, because it's like, it's especially when you first start designing, you're like for Neuron, I was like, I could comment in 1,000 interest checks and ask for 1,000 changes, just ticky tacky little
Yep.
things that I want, and I could never get the thing I wanted as efficiently as just making it. And luckily, I found 15 people that thought the same way. They all got custom colored
Yep.
neurons, none of which I've seen on the aftermarket. Shout out to them for not being pieces of shit. Um, and also, I had mine. I had a black neuron, and I had a Bushido red neuron, and I had polycarbonate neuron, and there was a huge part of me that was just like, okay, like we're good. Like, why would I go through all this stuff after this of like, having to deal with like customers, and like, why would I want to like ship things, and like that sounds like a pain in the ass. And actually, I very briefly, like, I think I like left 40% server, and I like closed the Neuron channel, and I just kind of like disconnected for a couple weeks, and then I came back, and I was because I was like, no, I really like this, and I think other people will too. And then as soon as like I feel like I started having like a connection with customers, and people started giving me like really positive feedback on my work and stuff like that. And I got to see neurons in the wild, especially with those 15 people that I sort of like were in for the prototyping run. There were some issues with those prototypes, and I learned a lot from that. But seeing those in the wild like really like amped me up, and I love seeing like Cahals in the wild, and I will look forward to seeing campsites in the wild. It's dragged on longer than I thought it would, but I think that once it arrives, people are going to be really happy with the quality. I hope.
I'm glad
So
I'm not the only one who felt that way, like, or feels that way. Like when I got the first prototype in for Ocean, I was almost like satisfied to be like, okay, I don't need to run this. Like I got what I wanted.
you scratch the itch. Done.
Like yeah, and it's like cool. I designed a board, and for me especially, it was like render to reality, and like, holy shit, this is amazing. I did a thing.
This is a thing. Yeah, this is the thing I wanted.
And like legit. So my wife and I like work like 3 feet apart from each other. Our desks are like right on top of each other. And I remember when I got it, when I got the black prototype, and like I think I sat and looked at it unbuilt for like 30 minutes, just sitting on the desk. I had my Pearl in front of it, I was using the pearl, and then I was just looking at this thing, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm like really happy. I'm like really genuinely happy."
Yeah,
And
just satisfied.
and
Yeah.
she was like, "But you don't look okay." And I'm like, "I don't know that I want to run this for sale. Like I really." And she's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did a thing. I'm accomplished." And then we sent out the prototypes, and we got feedback on that, and like the rose-colored glasses came off a little bit, and I was like, "Okay, we need to redo this." And so Taylor and I talked, and I said, "Let's just do 2 prototypes because we know what we need to fix. I'll buy them. I'll build them." And then I bought the polycarbonate. I convinced Taylor, like, give me 1 polycarbonate for myself, like as a gift. And when I got the new prototypes in and we got that purple one in, everybody was like, "Wow, that looks so great." And it was almost like the remotivation, right? Like, okay, I do want to provide this for other people. It is for me. I do want to provide it for other people, but I'm glad I'm not the only one who is like, "Oh, hey, I felt satisfied in that moment." And I think you're right. Scratching the itch was kind of it. And Zeus, I see you there, man. I hope that I can provide good feedback for you when I get it this week, and that you can use that as motivation to keep going, because it seems like you've got some very interested people in that. And so, yeah,
And mech fix and chill. Yeah, if you're in that like protos in now what like kind of feeling, I so the thing that like another thing that pushed me out besides what I just said about like wanting to actually run Neuron V1, because like once I ran Neuron V1, I was like, I can fucking do this, like done. Like now this is something that I do for the conceivable future. Um, but one of the biggest motivators was being like, look at these pieces of shit thinking they're running group buys. These fucking assholes suck. I can do better than that. Are you serious? One message every 3 months? Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people that I think are really have no business having other people's money in their bank accounts, like whatsoever. People who are irresponsible, and honestly, like the Royal comes to mind, where someone
Yeah.
who like I feel like had a lot of, and I think maybe he got like overwhelmed, and like things got over his head or whatever, financially or otherwise. But um there's so many other people where I'm just like, oh my god, like they ran that into the ground. I would have done that so differently. And then I was kind of like, yeah, maybe I can do this differently. And then that's kind of like that was like a source of like kind of pushing me forward, being like, well, can I do this? Like challenging myself. Can I run a better group buy than that fucking asshole? You know what I mean? Like there's and I think I can. Yeah, like I think I've done like pretty well so far. I think that there's a lot of really bad group buy runners out there, and like all you need to do is like communicate.
That's it. Like the bare
That's it.
minimum. That's all you have to do. And
Yeah.
so Ocean's actually not my first group buy. I did a group buy for acrylic corn cases. I had a guy local to me who,
Oh,
yeah, like I was like, hey, I have this corn. I want like a custom color. And what I really wanted was a black case with a frosted bottom, and a frosted plate, so that you could get the RGB through the top, the RGB through the bottom, but it didn't leak out the sides. Like that's what I wanted. And so I went to him and I was like, hey, and it was actually my friend's business, and his buddy was the one running the laser cutter.
nice.
And I was like, hey, I have these files. I want to mod just one piece. Can you do it for me? And he was like, yeah. And it was like $20, and he cut me out of some sheets of acrylic they had, and I was like, man, this is amazing. And I was like, I wonder if more people want this. And I put out a small interest check, and a lot of people really wanted it. And what I learned from that group buy, because some shit went bad where he ended up cutting the acrylic on the actual bed of the laser cutter. So what happened is the sides had all these little marks on them because the laser reflected off the metal, and it
I
looked
see.
ugly. And so I spent part of the money that I got for the group buy. I did profit, I put some profit in my initial calculations, but the one thing I did was every single week, whether I had an update or not, just send an email to everybody. Hey, wanted you guys to know we're in the process. We've done the black, we're doing the clear, and this other color will be done next week. Or it was
All it takes.
Yep, or it was just
Yeah.
straight up, hey, no update this week. I'm still waiting on something to happen, but I'll update you guys. And like everybody who was in that group buy, no one was upset that I had the mistake with the laser cutter and that we had to redo them and that it took like an extra 2 months, because I literally just kept in communication with everybody. Here's what's going on. Yeah. And it's amazing that even when you send an email that's no update, people just feel comforted that you're still paying attention to it. And I'm in sales, so I think that just comes naturally for me. And I hope that if anybody, it's almost 2-pointed here. Anybody in the stream that's still hanging here, if you are running a group buy, even if it's a small like 10 board group buy or whatever, just update everybody. Just send the communication, send the update. The other thing is taking a step back to the prototypes. If someone asks you to be in a prototype run, A, feel really special that they're asking you, first of all, and B, give honest feedback. Like, that's the best thing you can do is be honest. Don't just like butter up the person because you want to be friends with them and you want to get more prototypes. Like, straight up tell them like, hey, this really didn't work, this was really bad, or hey, this part was great but I didn't like this, because all that feedback is so important. So I wanted to take a step back there, because I think that there's people in here who may be designing or may want to do prototypes or something along those lines, and yeah, you never know. And again, big shout out to Zeus for sending me a paintbrush. Like, I feel so honored for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many really cool projects out there. It's so hard to keep up with 40s, and like just the amount of innovation that happens there is just unreal.
Yep. So we are wrapping up, at least in my opinion. It's 11:15 my time. It's 10:15 your time, and you've been a really good sport, man.
I'm almost out of scotch, so it's a natural wrap up point.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to keep you away from your girlfriend either. Like, that's obviously, I don't know if she's there.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah, we'll watch a movie or something before bed. Yeah.
Okay, like I remember doing the one with Coob, and he was like, well, I'm in my bedroom and I need to wrap it up because she wants to go to bed. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you should have told me this a long time ago. Like, I felt so bad, but
yeah, I do. One thing I do love about this place is that this is the headquarters of WalletBurner Industries, at least as far as like design goes and stuff like that. I have like my nice like adjustable height kind of like project table, and having a separate workroom is a godsend, because then I don't have to keep her up when I have late night conversations with like either factories or streaming.
Taylor, if you're here, I'm officially considering this the Atlanta office of Eternus. Just wanted you to be aware. So, but no, man, thank you for rolling with me that first half hour trying to get Discord and the audio, which turned out to literally be changing one stupid setting. But that's always how it goes. So thank you so much.
No worries. Yeah, this is really fun.
Yeah, and like I said, for those of you that are in stream still here hanging, I will be doing the paintbrush proto first, either probably Thursday. We're gonna hope that it arrives. If not, then we'll reschedule. Saturday during the afternoon for the EU folks, we're gonna do the garbage truck build, so that'll be really awesome. Keegan, thank you for the follow, appreciate that. And then we're going to set up the interview with Tiny Makes Things here very soon before Thanksgiving, so that'll be really, really awesome.
It's a sweetie.
She's awesome, especially because I asked her randomly, like we follow each other on Instagram, and I just was like, hey, I do interviews, do you want to do this? And she was like, yeah, I'm down. I'm like, cool. And the other piece is I've got coriander coming soon. I know Evan's getting ready to ship those like next week, so we'll do the coriander build soon. Phoenix, I know, is delayed a little bit due to the anodization stuff. Sorry, that's going to take a while. Packer is still doing its thing. I don't know. And whatever else I buy. Holy crap, Ringo with the 10 gifted subs. Thank you so much. That's
old money bags out there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. That's big time right there. And I appreciate you hanging out, Ringo. Thank you so much. Pearl R2 is insane. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I think Wallet's excited for that too. But yeah, like we are like I said, I want this channel to grow organically. I want to do some really cool stuff. I don't know who else is doing interviews right now, but like 40s focused. If you've got a project you want me to build on stream, I'm happy to do it. Even if it's an existing board. Like if you have another space you want me to build on stream, I just enjoy doing that. I understand a lot of people do too, but if you really want to, let's work it out. I don't charge for it. I'm not a guy who's driven on commissions for building, so but yeah, thank you so much everybody for hanging. Again, Andrew, thank you for being a good sport and hanging out with me for 3 hours. That was awesome, and maybe we'll do it again in the near future and kind of Maybe do like a roundtable thing. We'll get a couple of people on Discord and see what we can't drum up. I think that'd be
Ooh,
really cool.
that'd be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll definitely let you know when I have another project and stuff. But yeah, this is really fun. Thanks for having me.
excellent. And thank you. I feel honored that you joined me. So everyone have a great night.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Everyone have a great night, and we'll catch you next time. Hopefully Thursday. See ya.